of Education, in particularly the Information Technology Services Division, who will impact on you today. We're going to have an interactive session. Feel free to ask your questions. There are no bad questions. We're all here to learn, okay? So, before we continue and I bring up the various speakers, I want to encourage all participants to please put your cell phones on silent or vibrate. And I would love for you to engage effectively, actively, and save your questions until the designated section. So at this point, I am going to open the session with a word of prayer, and I'm going to ask Ms. Iris Simmons to lead us in prayer.
Okay. May we all bow our heads and close our eyes. Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for bringing us here this morning, God. We thank you for waking us up in our right minds, in health and good strength, God. We thank you for guiding us here, God, for your continued protection, your steadfastness, and your faithfulness towards us, God. Lord, this morning, as we begin this session, this important session on building our cybersecurity and cybercrime awareness, God, we pray, Lord, that you may help us, Lord. Help us to engage, God. Help us to focus, God. Help us to reach beyond our capabilities to understand what is being taught to us this morning, God. We pray, Lord, that you may take away any fears, any shyness, anything that might distract us or hinder us from learning this morning, God. This is a session, Lord, that is extremely important, especially with the activities that are happening in this country, God, in our efforts to digitize our government services, God. Protection of those services is important. So we're asking for each and every one of us, God, to have a focused mind, God. Help us to learn, help us to understand, and help us to reach beyond borders, God, and to see more than what is presented towards us today. We thank you, God, for every person that is here, every participant, every speaker, every educator, God. We thank you for your grace and for your mercy. Thank you for this opportunity once again. All these things I pray in your name. Amen.
Please remain standing as we play the national anthem. Thank you. You may take your seats. So once again, good morning and welcome to our seminar on cybersecurity, cybercrime awareness. And before we proceed, I am Emma Jackson, the Director of the Public Sector Reform Unit in the Ministry of National Security and the ministry responsible for public service. We invited a wide array of public servants, civil servants to this session because we know a lot of the public ministries, departments have IT initiatives. So we're seeing some police, immigration, we see the nurses. I know we have various representatives from various ministries and departments, and we want to welcome you to this session. Please take as many notes as you can. Go back and become an ambassador for cybersecurity so that we keep our documents and our service safe. So to move on, I want to welcome, coming forward, the representative, Ms. Candy Saunders Alfred. She's the rep from the CARICOM Impacts, and she will give an overview of the entire project. Thank you. Please welcome her.
Good morning, everyone. As indicated, my name is Candy Saunders Alfred. I work with CARICOM Impacts as a cyber analyst, and as Emma indicated, we have been a part of this project from implementation. We are the organization that overlooks crime and security within the region, to which we provide technical guidance and expertise during the whole digital implementation project. Honorable Leacock, Minister of National Security, Mr. Winston George, Emma Jackson, representatives from OECS Commission and CARDAP team, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and of course, you the participants. I want to thank you for being here. I bring greetings from the leadership of the CARICOM Implementation Agency for Crime and Security, also known as Impacts. On behalf of our Executive Director, Lieutenant Colonel Michael Jones, Chief Analyst Dale Joseph, we are honored here to partner with you for this seminar as we work collectively to elevate cybersecurity, cybercrime awareness, and standards across the public sector. Let me start with a simple reality. Today, a cyber incident is no longer a question of if, but when. Across the Caribbean region, our regional government system faces daily probing. We are seeing ransomware attacks on public institutions, sophisticated phishing emails targeted senior officials, the fraudulent social engineering schemes designed to illicitly redirect funds. Increasingly, these attacks are not random, they are actually targeted. They are persistent and in some cases powered by artificial intelligence. This use of artificial intelligence makes the attack more convincing and more realistic, so it's very difficult for persons to detect. The impact is real. A single compromised account can disrupt services, expose citizen-sensitive data, or undermine public confidence in an institution that may have been established for years. So cybersecurity and cybercrime is no longer just an IT issue. It's a leadership issue. It's a governance issue. And it is central to maintaining trust in government, private, and public sector. On behalf of CARICOM Impacts, I am pleased to join you for this session, and I want to thank the OECS Commission, the CARDAP team, who are part of this project, and all the national partners for bringing us together in such an important time. Because while threats are evolving, so must our response. In the region, we face a unique combination of challenges, limited resources, increasing digital dependence, and highly interconnected systems across government. At the same time, we are expanding online services, digitizing records and modernizing operations often faster than we are strengthening the security around them. What this means is that resilience cannot only rely on technology alone. It depends on people. It depends on processes, and it depends on clarity, as in who reports the incident, who takes the lead, and how quickly do we respond, and how well do we coordinate across agencies. These are questions to determine whether an incident becomes a minor disruption or a national crisis. That is why this session is important. Today is not about theory, it's about practical action. It's about identifying gaps that exist within institutions, strengthening coordination between agencies, and ensuring that when something does happen, and it will, there is no confusion about roles and responsibilities or even the type of response that should be initiated. From CARICOM Impact's perspective, this work goes beyond a single country. Cyber threats do not stop at borders. An attack affecting one member state can quickly have implications for others throughout shared systems, regional institutions, or collective trust in our digital environment. So when we strengthen institutional capacity at a national level, we are also strengthening resilience across the Caribbean community. This is the bigger picture. And this is why your role here matters. Each of you represents leadership within your institution, and decisions you make, whether related to policies, procedures, or even everyday practices, and have direct impact on how well your organization can prevent, detect, and respond to cyber threats. So I encourage you to use the seminar not just to listen, but to reflect. Where are the gaps in your institutions? What can be improved immediately, and what commitments can you take forward from today? Because building a safer cyberspace in our region will not happen through a single policy or system. It will happen through consistent, coordinated action across institutions, across sectors, and of course, across borders. In closing, I want to thank you for your time, your engagement, and your commitment to this effort. CARICOM Impacts remains fully committed to supporting the OECS, CAADP, and all member states in strengthening more secure, resilient, and trusted digital Caribbean. I wish you a productive and impactful session. Thank you.
I think we can give Ms. Alfred another hand of applause. On the program, you'll notice that we had Mr. Winston George, but I will bring him just before the minister so he can give a proper overview of the entire project. We also had a representative from the OECS Commission, but unfortunately she fell ill. So we're going to have Ms. Stacey Ann Wilson, who is the lead consultant from the ODEM Consulting Group, correct? And she's managing the public awareness for OECS and impacts as implementing partners, and she will give an overview of the campaign so far.
Thank you so much. The Honorable St. Clair Leacock, Minister of National Security, Disaster Management, and Immigration, welcome. Welcome to representatives from the CARICOM Impacts, and also to Mr. Winston George, Project Coordinator for CAR-TP in SVG. Special welcome also to all attendees, and I'm happy to be here. I'm hoping that I will be able to do this project justice since we put in so much work. All right, so let's talk about the public awareness campaign. We've launched an overarching program that was built out of research. So at the start of this program, we would have done a situational analysis, and we would have looked at St. Vincent and the Grenadines to find out what is the situation on the ground, what is your cybersecurity and cybercrime knowledge, and how do we speak with the public. And what we found is that the campaign needed to be localized. It needed to be in the schools, we needed to speak with seniors, and we needed to speak with everyday individuals. So I want to start from there. The campaign, some of you may have seen messages on television, radio, social media, etc. But it's also very localized in terms of the team being on the ground, sharing brochures, being in communities and speaking with individuals on a day-to-day basis. We've also been doing promotions across 60 schools. The theme of the campaign is building a cyber smart Caribbean, and under that theme we have some sub-themes. So we have Swipe Safe Kids that targets children. We have Swipe Safe Youths that targets university students and also young adults. We have our digital seniors, and this targets our senior community, which you know is very vulnerable. We also have been targeting women in a specific way because women are unfortunately victims to a lot of romance scams. So scammers would play on their emotions online. And we really want women to know, how do you spot these scams? Now I see that some of the audience is laughing. What we've also found is that persons don't report on scams because they feel ashamed and they feel vulnerable. But I want you to leave here today understanding that cybersecurity is not just for persons who don't know. It's also for people who think they know, which is why we're having this workshop for civil servants, especially those that work in tech. If you're at the forefront of tech, you usually think that you can't be scammed, or you might be able to pick up on someone that is trying to hack. And so today we want to, I guess what I want to say is we want to communicate with you in a way that you understand that you're at the forefront when it comes to dealing with the public. So whether you're in tech, or you're in customer service, or you're in the police service, or you're a teacher, you are that middleman between the public and what happens in civil service. So whenever you meet someone and they want information, you must be able to tell them what to do, but you must be able to protect the systems you work with. And that is the campaign in a nutshell. It started from last year, and it's continuing until the end of May. And there is also a sustainability plan of where do we go next. And while we move forward in this campaign, you can see messages across radio, TV, social media, and also in your public spaces. So if you see brand ambassadors sharing cybersecurity information, please interact with them, share your views. We're happy to hear from you. I'm hoping today will be fulfilling for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wilson. And she mentioned that we're here so that we can be able to protect our systems that we work with. And we want to now bring Mr. Winston George, who would give an overview of the Caribbean Digital Transformation Project. And then you have a better understanding of why we are doing this cybersecurity seminar. So please help me welcome Mr. Winston George, the project coordinator.
Honorable Sinclair Leacock, Minister of National Security, Disaster Management, and Immigration, and also the Minister with responsibility for the public service. Mistress Candy Sanders Alfred, Cyber Analyst, CARICOM Impacts, Stacy and Wilson, ODEM Group, and essentially representing the OECS CAD-TP unit. They were contracted by that unit for the public awareness campaign. Master or Mistress of Ceremony, public servants, ladies and gentlemen, facilitators for today's session. I just want at the beginning to say good morning and also to thank each and every one of you for coming. This is going live as well, so I want to welcome the Vincentian community, whether here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines or in the diaspora. So I begin on the Caribbean Digital Transformation Project. The Caribbean Digital Transformation Project is a World Bank funded initiative for the 4 Windward Islands and the OECS Commission. These governments have invested close to $90 million to digitize government services. Now, this project is not about upgrading computers. It is part of a comprehensive plan to fundamentally reshape our public sector for the 21st century. And therefore, the primary objective of the Digital Transformation Project is to accelerate national digital transformation by expanding access to digital services, technologies, and skills across various levels of the society, in government, businesses, and also individuals. Now, the project is structured around 3 core pillars to ensure holistic transformation. Now, the first is the digital enabling environment. And under the digital enabling environment comes matters related to cybersecurity, digital financial systems, telecommunications, in terms of customer service, emergency communications, etc. Those are the cross-cutting issues that we need to build our digital footprint on. So we are also building the legal and regulatory bedrock that is necessary to secure a digital future, addressing critical issues like data protection, privacy, and cybersecurity. Second, we are looking at the digital platforms and services. This is where the most visible changes would be happening. Now it focuses on modernizing key government services. And this also includes the establishment of a government data center, an integrated e-payment platform, one-stop shop for customs, land, and tax services. Now, they have specific names. So in terms of the customs system, we call it vSwift, which is the Vinci single window for trade facilitation. We have land and property. That is what we call the ULIS, the Unified Land Information System. We have the TIMS. They have not yet branded it. That is the Tax Information Management System. Now, should I go into what these systems would basically do? Essentially, they are taking a lot of government services that you now do. By walking to different departments, you would be doing them online. Where we are in terms, before I go there, we are also addressing the upgrade of the civil registry system and a unified identification system, which establishes a foundational ID. So basically, rather than having to go to every government department and present your ID for services, Winston George is the same person who access services across government. So there will be a foundational ID system, And it's not necessary, it would not be necessary for you to be walking around with 2 and 3 pieces of ID to transact services with government. The third pillar of the project has to do with digital skills and technology adoption. And this is dedicated to empowering our people by rolling out training programs and supporting small and medium enterprises in adopting new technologies. Now, as I said, most of these initiatives are actually being rolled out as we speak. So where we are in terms of the tax information management system, the vendor that is delivering that system, they are working with the Inland Revenue Department and other stakeholders to roll out the system, and that is expected to be completed by January 2027. It's supposed to go live by January 2027. The Unified Land Information System, that is expected to go live in April of 2027. The customs, the 𝑣SWIFT, there we have already piloted one service on the 𝑣SWIFT, and that is the e-certificate of origin for about 6 manufacturing companies in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. In terms of the civil registry system and the UID, the firm is actually engaged with us and the various stakeholders in rolling out of that system. They have estimated in their work plan that by August, September, the UID would go live. After going live, we'd have to do enrollment. In terms of the civil registry system, that would be ready by November of this year. Now, there's an important part of all this process. So now we are accustomed to work with systems by themselves. An important part of that process is what we call the citizen portal, systems integration, and user authentication, right? So you would have one portal through which you can access the services. But there are several of these systems that need to speak to each other. Importantly, though, the unique ID system would be required across all systems, right? So I want to say that in doing all that we are doing, speaking to these major systems, we have 49 specific activities, project activities that we are implementing. So it's not only about the systems, we have to procure the hardware and other supporting software to support these items. Now, the integration of cybersecurity is not a secondary feature of the 𝐶𝑰𝑚. It is the very foundation upon which our entire digital transformation rests. As the project leadership has consistently emphasized, robust cybersecurity must be at the heart of digital transformation. So to operationalize this commitment, the project has addressed several key initiatives with the support of the OECS Commission, who are responsible basically for the cross-cutting issues, and I want to speak to them. One is the National Cybersecurity Action Plan, strategy and action plan. The draft of that has been completed. We are speaking about, we are in the awareness campaign right now, and then there are the targeted educational programs. In the Ministry of Education has partnered with us in rolling these out. I want to speak In terms of institutional strengthening, we are establishing what you call a government cybersecurity incidents response team, so that within government to protect the various systems that we have. But there's a broader mandate for the establishment of a national cybersecurity incidents response team. And what is that all about? That is looking at our critical national information infrastructure. So the VINLEX, I'm not too sure if their electrical grid is computerized and all that, and they manage it by that, but somebody could hack into that grid and shut off your whole, our telecommunications companies, our financial institutions, are they protected? How do they treat with the whole matter of cybersecurity? This brings me to one of the most critical points as I wrap up. Understanding cybersecurity hygiene and data protection is paramount. We cannot separate cybersecurity from data protection. Now, if we cannot establish trust, nobody would make all these investments into digital systems and nobody use them, right? So data protection and privacy are equally fundamental as the services that we are building, from e-tax to the digital ID system, are being constructed with these principles at their core. These systems must be strong, secure, trusted, and fit for modern service delivery. The OECS also has responsibility for data protection, the legal and regulatory framework for data protection, and by August they should have an harmonized data protection legislation for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. In conclusion, the 𝐶𝘰𝑝𝘺 is a bold leap forward, and its success hinges on a partnership between all stakeholders: government, people, and civil and business community. While we continue to build the infrastructure and policies for a modern, efficient, and transparent government, the ultimate protection of our digital society depends on every citizen's commitment to cybersecurity hygiene and data protection. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. George. And now we have a good understanding of why we're doing the cybersecurity campaigns across the OECS. One of the things Mr. George mentioned was systems speaking to systems, and we need to understand what could happen if that becomes compromised. Okay? So we'll learn more about that as we go through the morning. At this point, I want to welcome our Minister of National Security, Disaster Management, and Immigration, but most importantly, the Minister of the Public Service. He's responsible for the public service. I have noted over a couple days, probably weeks, that Minister has been involved in a lot of cybersecurity sessions. And I'm beginning to think he is now becoming an expert in the field. So we shall hear from him. I don't think he needs notes anymore. He knows it very well. So we want to welcome our minister as he addresses us.
Thank you very much, Madam Master of Ceremonies. There's so much concentration on the subject of the day, trust and cybersecurity, that you probably haven't noticed that I am dressed from head to foot with wonderful slippers. Suggesting that I wasn't very secure at some time over the last few days. So without asking, I volunteered that the rough waters in 𝘱𝑒𝑘𝑡 threw me on some rocks and gave me some foot damage. And you could understand now I'm no longer trusting the sea waters of Lower Bay in 𝘱𝑒𝑘𝑡, my favorite destination. That said, let me acknowledge the protocol and recognize Mr. George, our project director, the 𝘰𝑟𝑟𝑚 Impacts colleagues, Candy Saunders, Alfred, Ms. Stacey Wilson of ODM, the consulting group, and Ms. Jackson. Charity begins at home. She's the director of public sector reform. And too often when I'm introduced to speak in St. Vincent, or I'm the Minister of National Security, NEMO, Immigration, and they stop there. And the public service has more than all of those people combined. They're trying to cut off my pay. I have a few minutes to share with you. And if I comment where Mr. George ended, having summarized his colleagues before him, perhaps I can proceed to say lunch is served because it's been a very comprehensive insight into the important reasons why you're here today on the front line, not just of cybersecurity, but of national security. And Madam Master of Ceremonies Director, Public Sector Reform, this is so important that I do not commence my brief presentation with the notes that have been forwarded to me to assist me in speaking to you today, but to borrow on an aspect of the theme that has been presented this morning, which takes me back to my last outing in St. Lucia, where I took up the chair of the Council of Ministers of the Regional Security System, RSS, for which 𝘰𝑟𝑟𝑚 Impacts is such an important cousin. And to borrow from Dr. Grenard, the feature speaker at that event, who leapfrogged in her presentation a doomsday scenario in which she took us to the year 2040. And in doing so, she first established that today, for many of us who are accustomed to the expression, the New World Order, or that we all live in a rules-driven world, she highlighted that for all intents and purposes, that we are today living in a world disorder. We are unruly. We are no longer obeying rules and regulations. And in that regard, we are living in a world of great uncertainty. And I think that is indeed a very healthy proposition that is relevant to today's consideration, because inherent in that presentation, which took us to the year 2040, in which there was no regional security system, no police force. The bad actors had taken over. They had taken control, as Mr. George had advised. The power companies and their grids and their capacity to transmit and distribute electricity. Of the water utilities, they could switch it on and off at their own convenience. They were now in charge of the banks, the financial systems. You no longer knew how much money you had or did not have in the bank. It wasn't actually yours anymore, it was theirs. And all of the digital systems that, quote unquote, were towards to make us more productive, more efficient, were in disarray. And we were at that stage where, in a Darwinian kind of way, it was every man for himself. She's painting a picture of a world that had collapsed. And that's not very far-fetched, because it supports, even more importantly, the reason why you are here. And your trust is so vital for securing our societies. And one good place and way to do that is to make the term cyber security an everyday term in your language, your expression, and your understanding. It's like going back to school and learning what we used to call in the old days your ABC. Learn to read and write, and phonetics and handwriting, and understand the basics of what makes societies function. Because think about it. Think about it. The director drew our attention to the fact that this is not a small project. It's a big project. Some $90 million of World Bank funded money. And what's the purpose for all that large amount of money? Don't get scared. I'm not like all politicians who speak beyond their time limits. The purpose of that large amount of money is to fundamentally change the way we do business, to fast track the paperless economy that we all welcome. Again, I use the word for efficiency purposes. And he also mentioned that as part of that process, or at least one of the other presenters, or all of them intimated so, the increasing use of artificial intelligence. You don't know what is real from what is imagined or what is understood. Yesterday, actually, in my own office, National Security, because I'm such a busy person, sometimes I would ask my executive secretary to assist me in writing a letter. I'll give her the main themes of what I want to have written. And when she brought me the letter yesterday, and I read it, I said, "You sure you didn't get help from AI?" She said, "Yes, Mr. Minister." And it's true. She took the basic framework of what I wanted to say and passed it to the system. And I had a beautiful letter that wasn't me, but said better than what I should have said. I'm painting you a picture. Money and technology, and more of the money and more of the technology, which has the knock-on effect of creating a much bigger marketplace for the bad actors. Isn't that so, Mr. George? Huh? We are increasing the opportunities for the hackers, the ransomware, and others to do business and to escape in the process of doing harm and injury to us. And our CARICOM Impacts colleague highlighted, this is not a make-believe. It's not an artificial construct. It is not a thought of something that can happen. She said boldly and correctly, it is here. It's happening. It's happening on a daily basis. Daily basis. When I was in Taiwan recently, and at the Bureau of Defense, they will tell you that on a daily basis, their interception of cyber security was in thousands. I believe in many of our Caribbean countries, we're not far from that. In fact, we are probably at the point now that no financial institution, no utility in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, indeed our own police force or immigration department, and I believe we are moving across the public sector spectrum, no unit of government might be able to function without a cyber security, not necessarily specialist, but person with a continuous eye on that activity. Am I correct, ladies and gentlemen? I think that's where we're heading. Because it is by the second, it's by the minute, it's by the hour, and by the day, where my expression, the bad actors, are trying to pounce on opportunities that we, quote unquote, are allowing them, and I don't say allowing them in a mischievous or negative way, but allowing them by virtue of the fact that we are expanding. So the greater space and activities and platforms we provide, is the more they have opportunities. That's the context in what we're saying. And that background, I believe, leads us to circle the wagon. Namely that if all those nefarious ransomware possibilities are constant with us, how do we defeat that? Well, clearly, as you probably would hear more and more of today in the conversation by the various presenters, technology, yes, will be one such way. But at the end of the day, you, the public servants, in the various governmental ministries, become the eye, ear, nose, and throat of that system. We need you now more than ever. And we need you now more than ever also in a contradictory way. Namely, and again I must reference the presentation of Dr. Grenard, because as she spoke about living in a world of disorder, and we heard the need today for more legal framework, regulation, and policing, and so forth. As we live in that world, she's reminded us that we in the Caribbean, who are about in a very small space in the global scheme of things, have within us something that we often take for granted, something that we often overlook, something which size is not the determinant of competence. And that's something which we have right here in our own St. Vincent and the Grenadines, is that word resilience. We are a people who have always overcome adversity. Are you with me? You accept that? Our own guy Funa people teach us that lesson. 4,000 people sent to Baliso to perish and die, where grass don't grow, the soil is uncertain, no drinking water, no amenities. 2,000 die. 2,000 find themselves in other places, Rotan, Honduras, and all places in the world. And today, have a population of over 1 million, and still retain their language, and their customs, and their cultures, more than those of us who reside here, and they're coming back to teach us. I'm mixing a lot of things to emphasize the importance of resilience. But resilience does not emanate or get its strength from technology, from machines. Important as systems are, resilience comes as a consequence of human understanding, the social being, that ingenuity, that God-given input that separates us, man and woman, from man-made entities, facilities, or technologies. We have a brain. We have a conscience. We understand what's morality. And trust is that glue that keeps us together. All of us inside of this room, all of us present here today. I can talk, you can talk, others can talk till we blue. If one of us don't trust the other, just in relationship, it doesn't happen. Correct? As the women in the room will tell us, you could talk till you're weary. Not you today. Don't translate me the right way. But it means they're coming through one day and going through the other day. But trust is that important glue that connects us and builds us into that coherent force that resists adversities. It explains why a family of 5 that prays together, spends time together, and with little money in the pocket will always defeat that other family where each of them are in the separate rooms, they talk to others, each other remotely. Each of them have their own vehicle, each have their own TV, their own computer. And for all intents and purposes, there are 5 different sets of people. There's no family about that. I leave you with a word for my academic pursuits that I always share among my governmental colleagues and in the classroom when I'm being professorial in the work that I have to do. It's that word called dyad, D-Y-A-D, dyad. And we speak about the dyadic relationship because it is critical for the cyberspace security considerations we're discussing today to function. What's a dyad? The dyad says, D-Y-A-D, and dyadic relationship, that in every relationship, in order for it to function and function effectively and fault-free, every paired every paired relationship in that network must function. So that, I don't know how many of us in the room, but it's perhaps 100 of us, and you can determine how much pairs we have. We may simply assume that everybody in here is getting along. That might be our assumption. They came, they listened, they took notes, they understood, they got 10 out of 10. But we never realized that these two don't speak to one another. And everything went beautifully right around the room until it reached to them two, and he watching she and she watching he. The whole thing collapsed, you know. Because we never took note of the fact that that pair, as they may say in electrician terms, short-circuited. So customs didn't speak to Inland Revenue. Inland Revenue didn't speak to the registry. By the way, Mr. George, I hope that, well, I don't know if I run for the next election, but I hope this don't reach to the registration center when the counting votes. so I might have to hire a cybersecurity specialist in my next campaign. You know, a little humor isn't bad, you know. A little humor isn't bad. But trust is critical. We are building a new public service. And that's why the Public Sector Reform Unit is so important, Madam Director. We are building a public service in which you in immigration are on the front line. You and the police are on the front line. Could I tell tales out of school? Yes. We are going to move somebody among the NCO group, and as you call them in the police force, all the way up to become an inspector. And for what good reasons? That he can, or she can be the contact person for CARICOM impacts. Right there in the police force, we're strengthening our cybersecurity capacity. Right there. And that will become a growing unit. Because the world disorder that we speak about is on our doorsteps. And all of the policy formation and all of the good intentions can go to naught. When I say naught, they say they know how old I am. Say zero major. Because our system did not build in a sufficiency and trust. I invite you all to not get so caught up in the note-taking, but more into their interaction and asking what normally we'll call the dumb questions, and become familiar with this concept, this notion, this idea of cybersecurity. Because in summary and in conclusion, what you do here in the room today is what complements and assists me and my ministry and this Prime Minister and this administration and your government and your society. It is what assists all of us in being able to be on the leading edge and worthy members. I was going to say a Caribbean civilization, but if I say that, y'all must say AI because it sounds like somebody else. But to be on the leading edge of what is required and what our people dependent upon us on a daily basis to advance, because that's the bottom line now, and improve the lot and life of our people. I apologize for not going to my notes, and thank you for your patience, for listening to me out on this very important subject. Thank you.
I told you, Minister didn't need notes. He has become pretty good with more attendance of our cybersecurity. So if you give the Minister a round of applause again, please. Thank you, Minister. Yeah, you can put it there. So we've come to the end of the ceremony, and we would okay. So at this point, I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask the member of the Caribbean Digital Transformation Team to give the vote of thanks so that we can then go straight into our feature presentations and we begin. So.
Pleasant good morning, everyone. It is my pleasant duty to deliver the vote of thanks for today's event. On behalf of the Caribbean Digital Transformation Project, I would like to express our sincere gratitude to our distinguished speakers for sharing such valuable insights and inspiring perspectives. Your contribution has truly enriched our understanding and is going to make this session a bit more meaningful. I would like to extend our appreciation to our special guests, partners, and stakeholders for taking the time to join us. Your presence and support continue to motivate and strengthen our efforts. A special thanks goes out to the organizing team whose hard work behind the scenes made this event a success. From planning to execution, your dedication has not gone unnoticed. Finally, thank you participants for your engagement, that's upcoming, thoughtful contributions, and enthusiasm. I hope you become a bit more enthusiastic through the event. Thank you once again, and we wish you all a wonderful morning.
Thank you very much. So just bear with us a few minutes while we thank our panelists, our speakers, so that we can now reintroduce or introduce to you the two feature speakers for the remaining of the session. So thank them as they leave the table. Thank you. There's water on the outside for those who may need some water. And just to let you know that we would break at 11, and we're going to have snacks at 1. Okay? So if you need some water, you can go in the back and get some water while you get yourself. speaker is Mr. 𝐶𝘰𝑚𝑡, who serves as the Assistant Director in the Information Technology Services Division within the Ministry of Education. Okay, he's responsible for all things IT within the ministry, and he brings to us, or brings with him, 23 years of experience in IT, and he has cybersecurity. We could say you're an expert in the area? Yeah, we can say so. Okay. So he will share with us today a comprehensive overview of cybersecurity and its implications on digital transformation. You would have heard all the initiatives that the Digital Transformation Project has put forward, and also we have systems within our own atmosphere, our own environment, systems. We have our IT equipment, we have emails, and he's going to bring a good overview of how cybersecurity can affect just the simple things that we do within our work environment. So at this point, presentation is not mine, it's Mr. 𝐶𝘰𝑚𝑡's. So I'm going to bring him up, and please give him a round of applause.
Thank you, Mrs. Jackson, a friend from plenty years. I bring you greetings from the management and staff of the Information Technology Services Division. And dear fellow public servants, civil servants, welcome to our cybersecurity awareness. Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. That sounds strange, not true? And one may be wondering, what does this have to do with cybersecurity? Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. I have put together the presentation of the Honorable Minister and that of Mr. George in my head and summarized them, and I thought if we were to leave there, we would be well aware, and also that of Ms. Saunders, my good friend Candy. Yes, it's Candy right there, Mrs. Duncan. Right? But we are connected by one public service. I often say that a house is as vulnerable as the number of windows and doors that it has. Sometimes people build big houses, and sometimes they don't live in some places in those houses. Sometimes they're sleeping in one part of the house, and people can come in at any point of the house, right? But if we put sufficient measures in place to monitor these doors and windows and points of entries, we can go to sleep in peace. And this is what we're here to do. A few years back, the government established a countrywide network under the digital transformation, under the 𝐶𝑰 broadband project, sorry. And what we did, we built a fiber infrastructure throughout the islands of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, connecting all government offices and departments. So all the clinics in the Ministry of Health, they are connected. All the police stations are connected. All the government offices, they are connected. Back then, the government said, okay, well now we have established roads, it is time for us to put vehicles on those roads. And hence, we proceeded to embark on the journey of the Digital Transformation Project. And what that does, it digitizes or digitalizes all of government systems as much as possible, right? Now, you know when you walk on the ground, you leave footprints behind. And people can follow those footprints. Understand? You see sometimes in movies, people tend to use their feet to cover the footprints. So the more systems we put in place, the more footprints we leave behind. Right? The more footprints what? We leave behind. It means that we can be followed. Hence, the reason why we're here is to show how we are all connected. Right? 1, in making footprints. 2, in covering our footprints. 3, in protecting the places where our footprints lead to. That sound good so far? I am told that sometimes that could be complicated. But I will try as much as possible to be simple. And if you have any questions, you can please ask, okay? Thank you. The human firewall, securing the Caribbean digital archipelago. Today we have representatives from St. Lucia, we have representatives from Trinidad, and we have many Vincentians here who travel the entire region. We are Caribbean people. So, Caribbeans, this session will be done by myself and Mr. Maxine Brung, my dear colleague here, who would do part of it later. So what will we be covering? Understanding cybersecurity in the public service, common cybersecurity threats facing government offices, safe email and internet practices, password security, and access protection, protecting government data and confidential information, mobile devices and remote work security, incident reporting and response. So, let me ask you, what is, in your opinion, cybersecurity? You hear a lot of it, at least one person. So what do you think is cybersecurity? One person, quickly. Half a second. Aye? Tell me, sister.
Cybersecurity refers to the digital measures put in place in order to, secure or protect some online service, platform, etc.
Thank you very much, sis. All right? What is cybersecurity? Cybersecurity refers to the practice of protecting devices, network, and sensitive information from unauthorized access or attacks that are aimed at exploitation or damage. Now, among us, there are different categories of people. There are those who are careful, and even when careful, we make mistakes inadvertently. There are those who don't care. Yesterday, I was brought face to face with one reality. My dear friend Maxine Brung told me, with knowledge and cybersecurity, there are two sets of people that are, at risk. Those who know too little, and those who know too much and think they can't be, impacted. Now, we have to be careful that we don't fall in any of those categories. Understanding that the science is dynamic, the world is dynamic, and good people don't need the law in order to do good, but bad people will always find a way to break the law. Understand? The minister said a while ago, all of us are sitting here and we make certain assumptions that we are getting along. Right? Sometimes the very people you speak to and hug up, you don't know they are the ones who hate you the most. You understand the point? So hence, you have to put up what we will refer to as a zero trust type of mechanism. Right? Take everything the old people say with a pinch of salt. Nice. Cyber attacks can come in many forms, including phishing, ransomware, and malware. These attacks can lead to data theft, financial loss, and much more. Right? Protection methods, antivirus. At the ITSD, we have been buying antivirus and volume licenses, and we have been installing them across the public service as much as possible. Secure passwords, and we'll go in later to what is secure passwords and so on. Two-factor authentication and so on. Those terms we'll define a little later. Right? Are just a few tools used to protect data and stay safe online. I want to establish something. Every time you access the internet, you are literally using somebody else's computer. And I want you to get that. I want to ask you a parallel question. Would you voluntarily go into somebody else's bathroom and use their toilet? Would you? If you have no choice. If you have no choice. You heard what you just said? If you have no choice. But voluntarily, when we access the internet, what we are doing is accessing somebody else's computer, literally. And we are trusting that computer, we are trusting that person. And sometimes we are volunteering very personal information. We are volunteering the information that we are trusted with to those people. For instance, because I want to hit it hard, I'm kind of digressing a bit, but I want to hit it hard because I don't want us to live here today without getting this. The government operates an email service. Standard operation by all governments. When government put policies in place, people are expected to follow them. Use the government email service to send the government's correspondence and do the government's business. And you do not and must not use third-party email services, whether it be Gmail, Hotmail, or what have you, to do the government's business. The reason why? We are volunteering the government's information to North America, to the United States of America, to England, to Canada, and to all the persons out there who would love to have it. And we live at a time when the currency is information. And we are giving it to them freely. And then we want to find out how they know so much about us. And sometimes they are the ones who attack our systems and we don't know. Because we always believe it's China or somebody else. Hello? But we must call it by its real name. You don't know who is who. So why we need cybersecurity? Because there is cybercrime. And cybercrime is different than traditional crime. All of us live in St. Vincent and Grenadines, we have electricity. An electric cable is connected to our house. And when the main lines are chopped, let's say I live in Barley. When the main lines are chopped, let's say in Kittels, there's no light in Barley. The internet, hello, is a system that is made up of a bunch of subsea cables running through the entire globe. Millions of miles of them. Right? And now you have satellite communication, and these are the same people who control all these satellite communication. We speak of Starlink. We speak of Amazon coming out with new technology that will enter into the Caribbean just now, offering internet service to us. And these are the same people who control these networks. These link people globally. So your cell phone is accessible to a man in China. The computer that you use on the government desk that is connected to the internet is connected to a man in Korea. Hello? I want us to get the context. So, a cyber criminal can attack you from anywhere. Right? From anywhere. So, let's move on quickly. Recent cybersecurity incidents in the Caribbean, and I'm sure that there are some that are more recent than this. You have Caribbean Airlines in 2023 suffered a data breach affecting customer information. Airline systems were disrupted temporarily in the Ministry of Finance in Jamaica. Right? It was hit by a phishing, right, and attempted fraud scheme. Attackers tried to redirect government payments, right? In St. Kitts and Nevis, we have a major ransomware attack there and so on. This is a case where people, they come into your computer, they encrypt your file, your important files, and they ask you to pay. And if you don't pay, they expose you, right? And we have Flow, and I have many more. I had many more, but we have to cut them short and so on. We have Flow in 2022, 2023. Customer data exposed in a breach, right? Triggered concerns over telecom data security. So, here we are. You heard that we are implementing a digital transformation project. Long ago, if you want to get married and you live in Beckway, you have to come to St. Vincent to get the marriage certificate. You understand? You live in North Leeward, you have to come to Kingston to get a birth certificate. Digital transformation allows the government to put these things online and decentralize these services, making them accessible to you. This digital transformation also allows for integration. You know, people are born in the hospital. Not true? You have to go to the registry to to register them. But now we're doing bedside registration. Hello? We're doing bedside registration. We have cases in the past, for instance, of people being deceased, people collecting poor relief on their behalf. We have cases of people being deported and people coming back to St. Vincent and applying for new passport in other people's name. We have these cases in the past. But what this digital transformation does, it links all of these departments. Whether it's passport and immigration, you understand me? Whether it's the civil registry and the hospital, with the police and everybody. So we have an interconnected system where a person is represented only once. And if that person is deceased, when the system is operating properly, and you delete that person will exist nowhere. So that will enhance our security. Cybersecurity as the foundation of digital public service. Why your daily digital habits are the ultimate defense for governance and transformation. Now, let's look at it. You see at the bottom here, right? You see at the bottom there? What you see there? Users and the access, right? And who are we? We are the custodians. In Treasury, you have system administrators. They are the ones responsible for inputting all the data and for protecting it. I once heard a mafia said, I do not need to own a supermarket if I can own the man who owns the supermarket. You get that? Right? Now, you have immobilization. The government use that as a program now to help the indigent, you understand me? And poor and so on. A lot of resources floating around there and so on. If somebody gets you to exploit somebody there, they have access to the system. Not true? And we are people with all manner of problems and all manner of secrets that can be exploited. That can be what? Exploited. So guess what? Cybersecurity do not simply attack, cyber criminals, do not simply attack heavily fortified systems. They attack people. Civil servants are high-value targets for spear phishing, meaning targeted phishing, social engineering, and impersonation scams. Your credentials, right, defended through strong password and multi-factor authentication are the master keys to the government's digital vault. Now, on the other hand, you see there, data protection, right? Protecting the public's data. We are the custodian of sensitive citizens' data. Now, I cannot come to the hospital and say, Sister George, give me the medical record, or Sister Richardson, give me the medical record for John Jones. Because that is supposed to be protected by law. You understand me? But now sometimes you have a sweet talker, and because they know somebody, hello? They come and they say, oh, so, and they create a circumstance. And they bring the message from somebody in authority. And you don't want to be in that person's bad book. Sister Jackson? Not true? So there's an urgency now to hand over that information. Only to find out later that person manipulated you. We have to be aware of those things. Right? So, we have to be aware of those things. Classified communication and official documents, right? Proper data classification, privacy compliance, and strict control over file sharing and external storage like USB prevent compromises that destroy public trust. And I want us to be careful. We still, in many cases, operate a manual system. And sometimes we trust people to carry a document up to the Ministry of Health. Hello? And sometimes the person may tell you, I will not open it. What guarantees you that the person doesn't open it? You get me? So, guaranteeing service continuity. We have malware and ransomware that can paralyze public institutions. Strict adherence to security practices from avoiding unsecure public Wi-Fi, Sister Richardson. And I want to speak to all of us regarding that. People are free. People of what? People of what? My grandmother Vita Lane used to say, nothing is free in this world. Right? Nothing is what? Free. So avoid connecting to free Wi-Fi with the government devices. Right? Because these open Wi-Fi are not properly protected. In most cases, the information is transferred in plain text. Right? And there are other reasons that I would bring forward to you a little later, but in most cases, a hacker can easily hack the information. Right? So, every email analyzed, every password secured, and every incident reported is an act of public service. Right? It's an act of what? Public service. Now, it's an act of public service. Diagnosing the institutional ecosystem. So, what is the current state? Fragmented coordination across departments. Sometimes I get calls, say, oh, there's a problem in the Ministry of Health. But it occurred, let's say, 5 weeks ago. And I'm saying, how come I don't know? And sometimes we get blamed. Limited policy awareness among general staff. Right? The ITSD is ISO certified. It's an international standard. I was told to say what is ISO. It's an international standard. And you know, this standard applies to, they have different standards of the same organization in medicine, in aviation. You understand me? For different fields and so on. Right? Universal understanding of digital hygiene. Of what? Digital hygiene. Recently we had COVID. And COVID was a hygiene problem thing. If you wash your hands and keep far from people, you're good. Not true? Huh? Seriously, if you wash your hands and keep far from people, you're good. In the same way, we have to practice digital hygiene. Right? And we'd see how not to. Right? We'd see how not to. Thing. Formalize documented escalation checks. Formalize documented escalation checks. Avoid jumping on your phone and calling somebody and say, hey, you know me, let's get attacked there. You understand me? If you're attacked, go to a proper channel in doing so. Right? Go to a proper channel in doing so. Unbroken public trust and service continuity, these are things that we are trying to achieve on this side here. On this side over here, these are what we are trying to do, the ideals. And these over here, we see what the current status are. Right? Weak informational channels, that is, I just spoke about there. And what are the risks? Right? Critical public services will be done and so on and destroyed. So, next. Cybersecurity is not just an IT issue, and we heard it from Mr. George and from the minister. It's a leadership issue, right? And we have shared responsibility. Every staff member acts as the daily perimeter, right? It's a governance issue. We must establish rules and policies and operational boundaries. It's a public confidence issue. The ultimate metric of institutional success is public confidence. And I'm telling you, let's say for instance, you might hear people say, ITSD is no good. And you might hear somebody say, well, the hospital is so. You get what I'm telling you? Or you might say, oh, the people in mobilization is so. Or the people in the Ministry of Agriculture is so. The ultimate goal is to inspire public confidence that what we are doing is for the good of the people. Right? For the good of the people. Right. Civil servants as the ultimate gatekeepers. You are the ultimate gatekeepers. I do not have access to the passport and immigration system. I do not have access to the systems in the civil registry. And there is a reason for that fragmentation, for those delegations. You are the ones who have those access. You are the ones who are the gatekeepers. And what do you protect? You have passport information. You have tax profiles. You have healthcare information, right? And you are targeted for your what? Identity. You are targeted for what? For your identity. If somebody is able to use your password, they can get into the system. They can even create their own accounts. And they can elevate their privileges and have privileges, even the ones that you don't have. Once, they can even lock you out of the system. Hello? Can even lock you out of the system. Never leave your system open, not even for your colleagues. Not even for your what? Your colleagues. Because when you hear the rest of the staff know about the plans that you didn't tell anybody yet, you don't know what's going on. Right? National security. Policy jobs, critical infrastructure plans, and laws, and law enforcement communication. Right? Financial systems, the treasury, treasury disbursement, payroll, procurement contracts and so on. And let me tell you something. As simple as it looks, if you have a bidding process and the bid has not been awarded yet, for instance, and I'm able to go into the Treasury's computer or the Ministry of Finance computer and see that the contract is awarded to my good friend here, Officer Choi, that becomes a breach, and the government can be taken to court for that. And that can nullify the contract. Those things are serious, right? Those things are what? Serious. So, like you see here, the prizes, citizen data, right? State secret, critical information infrastructure. Critical information infrastructure. And at this point, because I'm responsible for that, I want to tell you, we don't have a bring your own device policy. Do not bring your own device and plug it into the government's network. Do not bring your own device and plug it into the government network. The one you use at home. They are vulnerable at home. They bring disease. Let me put it this way. They bring diseases into the government network, and ultimately, we have to clean it up. Because these diseases don't stay, or viruses, malware, or worms, they don't stay one place. They go all over the place. Sometimes you find after you bring your flash drive and plug it in, the system starts to run slow. And then you say, the internet crappy. Where ITS did up there? No. You are the problem. Right? So, you are the gatekeeper. You are not randomly targeted as a public servant. You hold the keys to information, right? Advisories that the adversaries most want. I wish I know what most of you know. Sometimes I wish I were invisible to go, let's say, in Parliament or into the caucus or in cabinet and sit there to understand the thought process. And some people are doing that. They are accessing your communication. Hello? Without your consent. And sometimes it's a simple thing like standing over your computer. You on your computer and they're standing there and they're taking a peep. Sometimes it's a simple thing as watching your keyboard. I have a little son home. I never show my password. But after they watch my hand 3-4 times, the man accessing my computer. You understand? So, you have to avoid that in the public service. The battlefield, how threat actors infiltrate networks. Threat actors there are hackers. Threat actors there are the bad guys. They are phishing and spear phishing, right? Deceptive emails to steal credentials. Spear phishing, targeting specific roles. Now, at the hospital administrator has a specific role that the SNO does not have. At the Ministry of Health, the minister has a specific role that the CMO does not have. In the Ministry of Education, the PS has a role that the Director of ITSD does not have. Right? We use role-based access control. Privileges are only given to the people who need them to do their work. You understand? We must have that separation of duty and make sure it works, right? But in terms of phishing now, let's get into that. A while ago, we said people have things free. Not true? Do not, we heard about females getting scammed. Don't go look for no internet man. Or woman. Find somebody you know, you could check out the background. You get me? Because a lot of people look better on their Facebook page. And the saying say, don't believe everything you see. Now, I might be desperate. I might be broke. But somebody sending me a thing and say, oh, I go send you $1 million, all you have to do that. I say, what? Watch me. I grew up in Mespo. And there were families in Yambu, they used to ride out in their posh cars. They have music blowing from Yambu, you could hear it in Glenside. And my grandmother Vita Lane used to be telling me, don't be jealous of nobody. Don't watch when nobody get, because you don't know what they do to get it. So I grew up with that thinking. So guess what? When you come and you tell me, and she says, if people are giving you something, ask quickly what they want in return. Hello? Ask quickly what they want in return. Ask yourself, why me? You see all these things going about getting rich quickly and doing this and that and that and that? The Bible says, by the sweat of your brow you shall eat bread. Not by scheming. Hello? Not by what? Scheming. And when there are schemes, verify the scheme. Do research on the scheme. And make sure that the risks are well calculated and you are prepared to take them. And when you take them, know that you have to deal with consequences. Right. So, social engineering. Yes, some sweet talkers. I asked my mother how we could get hitched with such a worthless guy who loved the whole world, had turned load of children. You know what she said? The man was smooth. The man was what? Smooth. Be careful of the smooth talkers. Right? Psychological manipulation impersonating a senior official or vendor. They come in the name of somebody else. You understand me? To trick staff into breaking protocol. Right. We already learned what is ransom and fraudulent links now. I want to give you this advertence here. That's Spanish. Sorry. sorry. It makes sense. No. sorry. At all times, copy and paste a link. When you get a hyperlink, do not click on the link. Hello? A link is like a portal. When you go through the portal, you don't know where you're going. You understand? As much as possible, use the mouse and hover over the link to see where it is going. Because most of the time, this now might lead you to a website. And you might be thinking it's the bank's website. Hello? But there's some little change in the name there that is different than the bank's website. And that site is set up fraudulently to steal your information. Right? Now, I wanted to mention something that I didn't put here. Cookies. You guys understand what's a web cookie? You might be on the internet and you see something show up and say, oh, this site uses cookies. You understand me? This site uses cookies. Now, what that does is a little piece of code that they download on your computer. And there are two types. There's a temporary one, download on your computer, and there's a persistent one that's kind of difficult to get. They call it a zombie cookie, and you don't want to jump it on your computer, not true? Right? These are the ones that remain illegally. And in this country, there are laws that speak about illegal remaining. You understand me? That is how like somebody gave you access to their computer for a little while, and then you decide that you're going to remain. You cannot remain. But what that does, the computer, and reporting. Report all incidents. Give me 2 minutes, let me kind of run through this quickly. Alarm, how do you recognize that something is going wrong with your system? Unusual, slow, or erratic devices. Unexpected pop-ups on your computer. You notice after you access certain things, and they say there's a cookie, and you click. Instead of going to the security and say, okay, well, you're accepting this, or you're not accepting this, you say, accept all. Then you notice you start to get a lot of pop-ups. Right? Antivirus endpoints security are disabled. What that is? You go to your antivirus, and instead of, you say, no, you want to scan, but you can't access the antivirus. Right? They disable it. Suspicious login alert from unintended multi-factor authentication prompts. What that is the following. You have your email service set up with Google. You didn't access your bank because your bank is set up with your Google, and your bank say, hey, somebody transferred $200 this morning from your account. Is that you? You understand the point? So they will say, if it is you, don't say anything, but if not you, then give a feedback and so on. Official files suddenly missing, moved, or corrupted. On your computer, you have a bunch of files there. You go now, you see 2 files in your put there. Or the file you put there now have a bunch of different extensions that you don't know anything about. Or 3, you cannot open the file. Right? Contacts reporting fake emails from your account. You didn't send an email to Sister Duncan there, or you didn't send an email to Sergeant Joy, but they get an email from you. And they call you to say, like, Miss, watch me now. I have a deputy boss, right? And she's very, very, very vigilant. Very, very vigilant. And she really bad with this. Miss Chris would say, Duncan, wait, I see something in the comment. You send that? No, I don't know anything about that. Or yes, I know something about that. Because we have to develop that culture within the public service. If you're not expecting something from someone, do not open it. Right? And if you see something come from someone that you know will not normally send something to you, and especially of that nature, call them and ask them. Right? Call them and ask them. So, right? Incident report protocol, step 1, detect and disconnect. If you realize that you have one of these issues, plug out the network cable. Disconnect from the public Wi-Fi. Step 2, report immediately. Report what? Immediately. Step 3, preserve evidence. Preserve evidence. Do not shut down the computer, right? Step 4, you go to data recovery and so on. And for those of you who are in departments that do have systems and so on, please ensure that your backups, that you have frequent backups, full backups, you understand me? And so on, and that those backups are tested. And those backups are what? Tested. Because sometimes people have backup when they go to bring back up the system, the backups themselves are no good. Because the backup was done with bad data, okay? So, hiding a mistake turns a minor incident into a national crisis. Every reporting is your strongest defense. Right? It is an act of public service. All you reporting. You report what? All. Report all. Right? All. So, basically, right? Lock your devices immediately when unattended. Do not use personal emails for government tasks. Protect citizen data at all times. Keep your software up to date. Make sure that your systems are properly patched. Right? Only use approved system trusted resources. Avoid public Wi-Fi for official government business. Thank you very much.
I think we can do better than that. How many persons
It says that I don't have, it's not working, it needs updating.
Okay. Now, I'm happy that you mentioned that. Now, the ITSD is the main or overarching IT department in government. Where are you working again, Sister Walters? London Surveys. Now, there's a certain level of monitoring that we do, right? There's a certain level of monitoring that we do. But in protecting the network, and this is why we have this session, everybody has responsibility, right? Because the government doesn't have an overarching policy to implement the Active Directory on everybody's computer, most public servants have administrative access to their computers. Hello? So they pretty much install anything. You understand? They go to pretty much any website as much as possible. There are those that we block, right? But there are those that we have, and so on. So up and now, we have to have all hands on deck in protecting these systems. At the ITSD, we operate a small maintenance team. I think that team, Ms. Chris, is about 8 persons, 7? And 7 and 2 away. And those 7 people attend to an entire public service. You see why we need everybody on deck? So at the Treasury Department, we have the expectation that Mr. Cordes and his team will play a certain role. At the Civil Registry, we expect, for instance, my dear sister 𝘱𝑒𝑙𝑜𝑒𝑐 and her team would play a certain role. In the Ministry of Health, we expect, for instance, Sister Lisa and her team will play a certain role in assisting us to secure the network. Right? Because we do not have Active Directory to have a type of centralized management of these computers, it is difficult to do that in that sense. We're hoping to grow there. We have a project where we are developing the Active Directory. We have started with the ITSD, right? And previously, we have one we want to roll out in the Ministry of Finance and so on. And there are some departments that already have like the IRD and the Inland Revenue Department and so on. But those are gaps that we need to fix. The other thing I want to make you guys aware of, because a lot of people they don't know. The ITSD operates a help desk. Right? Any issue you have, you can go and create a ticket. Right? If the ticket is if it's a networking issue, or a telephone issue, or internet issue, it will come to me, and I would assign it to somebody within my team and so on. If it's a maintenance issue, it will be assigned to the people in maintenance. If it's a software issue, it will be assigned to somebody in Mrs. Joseph team and so on. So we do have these things in place. Right? What has been happening, a lot of people have not been using these things. Right? Have not been using this thing. This session is about telling you security is everybody's business. And when you have an issue, you have to report. And reporting early is important.
Hi, good morning. As it relates to credentials for online accounts, you briefly touched on how to create a strong password, but what are ways to store these passwords? Because as humans, we can't really remember. I know there will come a point where you forget the password. So can you kind of reiterate methods of storing these passwords? Because I know you said not to store them on Google Drive and those softwares that government do not provide.
Okay, I'm happy you said that because that was one of my questions. For those of us getting older, this every 3 months, so elaborate.
I'm sorry that the computer there, that is connected there is not mine, right? Because I have it on my computer, so I could have displayed it to you. But one, with all that is happening in the world, the globe is shrinking down, right? And people are using for universal authenticators. People are looking for what? Universal authenticators. They're looking to establish organizations that have good reputation and so on, like Google, to provide that for you and so on. So Google provide that service, right, where you can, for instance, back up your passwords with Google password managers and so on, and you can have that, do your passwords across the thing. But for the government service, we do not even advise that. What we advise is that you use a password manager and as much as possible, use one that is independent of your operating system. Because within Windows itself, there is a password manager. But if your Windows operating system is hacked, that may be compromised. So we're asking you to use something like 𝐶𝘰𝑝𝘺, right? So Max would elaborate on that after, right? And he would show you. It allows you to create a little database. You create your credentials inside it for each account, wherever they are, for whatever purpose. And you can work with this database anywhere. You can put it on your phone and so
on. This 𝐶𝘰𝑝𝘺, is this a software that you have to download on your device? And if yes, then...
Okay, so the second session will deal with a lot more practical ways of dealing with cybersecurity. One last question, and then we'll break. And we'll break for 15 minutes. Make it as swift as you can so that we can come back to the next session, which is really interactive. after which we would have snacks, and then you go back to your office. So one last question, and then we'll proceed to the back and get our snacks. Come back at 15 minutes.
Good morning, everyone. So Duncan, you mentioned earlier about personal devices, right? Very often, the main focus is getting the job done. It's very rare that you would think, oh, I can use my personal device at work. Because, for example, when I just started, I wasn't given a desktop, I wasn't given a laptop, but I had to get the work done. So I brought my personal computer and I kept going back and forth, back and forth. And I'm sure I wouldn't be the only one doing that, right? So for me, it didn't cross my mind that, okay, this thing here that you're doing is incorrect. In addition to that, when it comes to emailing, we deal with a lot of confidential stuff, child abuse, people's very private stuff, and we use our personal emails. The office email is actually a Gmail. You see where I'm coming from? So is it that the information wasn't disseminated well? Or is it that the system is incomplete? The ITS, yeah? ITS have computers for all of us?
Hold on. Let's go back up a bit. One, I'm going to tell you this by way of example. I was in charge of doing this project at the old 𝘰𝑗𝑝𝘺𝑒𝑟 building, right? Jackson here and I were in the same ministry or office, one not far from each other and so on. But the project was given to somebody else, and then it wasn't working out, so they gave it to me. We had one jail. The boss then, there's somebody doing some work up in the country. They wanted to use the jail and so on. So the work on the project wasn't prioritized. Difficult because we had deadlines and so on. So what I did, I brought my jail from home. You see that beautiful lady there? That's my wife.
Hi.
Right? The jail got broken. The jail what? Got broken. I could not go to the government and tell the government to replace my jail. You understand the point I'm making?
Understand.
So if your personal laptop got broken while doing the government job, you have no compensation. On the contrary, if you lose the government data on your personal computer, you can go to jail.
Just so?
Just so. And I want you to get this. Sometimes we are part of the problem. I will tell you what is. Sometimes we are in a department, we lack resources, but because we bring we own, then they don't buy any. Okay? So sometimes we are part of the problem. The second question is? The email. I am happy to see Ms. Chris here and people from my management, the management team and so on. And this is something that is dear to our heart. One of the most critical services that we provide at ITSD is the government email. It is used by the Ministry of Finance. Right now, it is used by every member of parliament. It is even used by the opposition leader right now. The government spends a lot of money, and I say a lot of money, paying for these licenses every year. Currently, we have 6,000 licenses. 6,000 licenses. Right? Right now, as we speak, the police is joining the government domain. I'm advising each public servant, each civil servant, have a government-assigned email address. And I'm going to adjust something personally, something that is not even my business, but it's our business. Now, you have nurses, for instance. Sister Richardson, you want to send an email, something that tomorrow morning to all these nurses. Or the nurse is supposed to check the email before they go to their duty because there's some change of duty. Sister Jackson, you know what I'm talking about? If you have a government email, you could say you form groups with them. And you say, Bob, send to the group day. Because you have different group, one name staff nurses, next one names departmental managers, the next one name ward manager, what have you. You create these groups and you can send it to them. Hear the thing now. If current gone, our internet down, you can't get Gmail. Hello? But if the internet down, you can call at ITSD and say, hey, I was checking on this email, and you can still they can still be allowed to access your mail. You understand? I'm saying advise your departments to apply for government-assigned email address. How do you do that? You write the director of ITSD and say, we want email accounts. Go to your head and to get this. Right? Because we have this service, and pretty much, because if me in control, everything is black. Long time.
So Mr. Brown will be touching a lot more about the emails. And at this point, grab Mr. Duncan at the back and ask all your questions. Snack is served. 15 minutes. So that we can be out of here for 1.
Hi, my name is Crystal and welcome to 𝑘𝑟𝑪 Recreational Park. Many people come here to have picnics, to have fun, to socialize, to have cookouts right at the 𝑘𝑟𝑪 Recreational Park and to even swing on this thing. It's a very nice place to come, especially on holidays and when people come back home to visit family. There's something very distinct about 𝑘𝑟𝑪. As soon as you get here, there are a lot of sea grapes and coconut trees which help to give it this very tropical feel. One of the best things about 𝑘𝑟𝑪 is that it has a man-made pool right below here. And the man-made pool is smack in the middle of two lovely black sand beaches.
Hi, my name is Hayden, and welcome to our lovely botanical gardens. The oldest botanical gardens in the Western Hemisphere, which was established in 1765. It is also the home of our national bird, the Amazona gilding. Fun fact, the feathers on it, right, if you look very closely, it represents the colors of our national flag. The vibrant blues, the sandy yellows, right, and the vibrant luscious greens.
Hi, good day, my name is Taran. Welcome to Belmont Lookout. Behind me is the Mesopotamia Valley, also known as MESPO. This area is also known as one of the most cultivated areas in the Caribbean for the production of crops, including vegetable, fruits and spices, and it also has the title of the breadbasket of St. Vincent. It was also developed as a key area for cultivation. This area was also known as a hub for the runaway slave after the abolishment of slavery.
Hi, my name is Crystal and welcome to 𝑚𝘠𝑑𝘦 Recreational Park. Many people come here to have picnics, to have fun, to socialize, to have cookouts right at the 𝑚𝘠𝑑𝘦 Recreational Park and to even swing on this thing. It's a very nice place to come, especially on holidays and when people come back home to visit family. There's something very distinct about 𝑚𝘠𝑑𝘦. As soon as you get here, there are a lot of sea grapes and coconut trees which help to give it this very tropical feel. One of the best things about 𝑚𝘠𝑑𝘦 is that it has a man-made pool right below here. And the man-made pool is smack in the middle of two lovely black sand beaches.
Hi, my name is Hayden, and welcome to our lovely botanical gardens. The oldest botanical gardens in the Western Hemisphere, which was established in 1765. It is also the home of our national bird, the Amazona gilding. Fun fact, the feathers on it, right, if you look very closely, it represents the colors of our national flag. The vibrant blues, the sandy yellows, right, and the vibrant luscious greens.
Hi, good day. My name is Taran. Welcome to Belmont Lookout. Behind me is the Mesopotamia Valley, also known as MESPO. This area is also known as one of the most cultivated areas in the Caribbean for the production of crops, including vegetable, fruits and spices, and it also has the title of the breadbasket of St. Vincent. It was also developed as a key area for cultivation. This area was also known as a hub for the runaway slave after the abolishment of slavery.
Perched on the northeastern side of St. Vincent, surrounded by volcanic rocks, coral formation and reeffish, is one of our most popular recreational sites, the 𝑈𝘯𝑒𝑎𝑐𝑠 Salt Pond. The pond connects to the park by 217 steps. The park consists of a tranquil garden, gazebos and a children's play area. The village of 𝑈𝘯𝑒𝑎𝑐𝑠 is home to some of the indigenous people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, known as the Kalinagos.
No place sweeter, no place sweeter than here. St. Vincent, you are blessed. 32 islands and cays.
Hi, my name is Crystal and welcome to 𝑟𝘠𝑒𝑐𝑢 Recreational Park. Many people come here to have picnics, to have fun, to socialize, to have cookouts right at the 𝑟𝘠𝑒𝑐𝑢 Recreational Park and to even swing on this thing. It's a very nice place to come, especially on holidays and when people come back home to visit family. There's something very distinct about 𝑟𝘠𝑒𝑐𝑢. As soon as you get here, there are a lot of sea grapes and coconut trees which help to give it this very tropical feel. One of the best things about 𝑟𝘠𝑒𝑐𝑢 is that it has a man-made pool right below here. And the man-made pool is smack in the middle of two lovely black sand beaches.
Hi, my name is Hayden, and welcome to our lovely botanical gardens. The oldest botanical gardens in the Western Hemisphere, which was established in 1765.
Okay, good morning again and welcome back to the second and last section of our seminar. And I think we should give Mr. Duncan a round of applause. I know if we didn't stop Mr. Duncan, we'll be here because he has a wealth of information. And I hope you took advantage of the break and asked him as many questions as you could. So we're into the second segment, and we have with us Mr. Maxine Brown. He's the Senior Software Developer at Information Technology Services Division within the Ministry of Education. And he has over 21 years of experience in the IT industry, and he is certified in cybersecurity and forensic. That's why he did his master's. So he also has a wealth of information to share, and he will give us more so the practical elements of cybersecurity, especially as it relates to us within the public service. So again, put down your questions, and I'm sure you would enjoy this session going forward. So please welcome Mr. Maxine Brown.
Good afternoon, everybody. Morning still. Wow. Yes, my name is Maxine Brown, as I was introduced, and good afternoon, everybody, again. Morning, everybody. So this is the practical section of the session. It is not a lecture, which means I want your interaction. And if I don't get it, I'll pull it out of you. All right? Before I start, I have a confession to make. And the confession is to just set the tone as to how hard this is. When I walked in here, I did 4 things wrong, if I could remember. First thing I did wrong is I took his Bluetooth device and I pushed it into my machine because he needed to connect the sound. The second thing I did wrong is because this machine is connected to the system, I had to use a flash drive to collect his information and put it on mine. Third thing, I connected to the internet from here. And I'm a security professional. All right? Now, don't worry, I have systems in place on the machine to prevent against that, but most people don't. And I say that to say that security is something that is not easy, because when it comes to the practical application of life, you're always going to find a situation that overrides what you're taught to do or what you're supposed to do. So I'm just going to give you an overview of what the presentation is. I call it a presentation, what the interactive session is. I'm going to try and tie how your daily life as a government worker ties into security. We do not have enough time to touch on everything, so we are going to focus on the things that we think are most important. Right? So let's start. Right, so today's agenda, the first thing we're going to recognize common cyber threats in public service work, respond appropriately to suspicious messages, devices, and incidents, handle government information more safely, and understand your role in institutional resilience and public trust. So you play a big part in achieving all of this, and we're going to try and cover that today. Every cybersecurity action tries to do one of 3 things. It tries to make things either confidential, it tries to maintain its integrity, or its availability. So if you have data, or you have a device, it being labeled as secure is dependent on it meeting these 3 pieces of criteria. If it breaks one, then the whole thing is broken. And we get to how that works a little later on. A little bit of theory for you first. And the question is asked, why now? We've been operating for years. What is so different now? With all the government services that are coming online, it increases your threat surface. You are now vulnerable to things happening. All these systems that are online are available not only within an office, but also accessible through the internet. And that creates a whole different host of problems because your behavior and how you treat the information will determine how secure it is. You can set up systems in a way to make them secure, but how people use these systems is inevitably what is going to make the difference. So the threats we face now amount to data exposure, service loss, and data loss. So they are self-explanatory, where data exposure is people get to see information that is not supposed to be for them. Service loss, which is a service going down based on system going down, infection of an operating system. And data loss is actual losing of data itself. So I want to find out in the audience how many persons consider themselves IT professionals or work as an IT professional within government, by show of hands. We have a few. So when I say certain things, I see some persons who I know are IT professionals whose hands are not up. But when I look at you for certain topics, it's because it's specifically for you. The structure of this is more for persons who are not power users, but there are certain aspects of it I just cannot leave out, right? So what affects everything is segmented into three parts in this demonstration. Human behavior, which would amount to weak or shared or reused passwords, clicking phishing links or opening suspicious attachments, sending data to the wrong person. We'll touch on that question that was asked, Lady in Green. Earlier, we'll come to your question. Ignoring security warnings, using unknown flash drives. That is what we have today for human behavior. This is not an extensive list. It is just what I want to touch on today for time purposes. And then for the IT professionals, you have the post system configuration, which comes up to these list of things here, which is the default passwords unchanged, wrong permissions, misconfigured firewalls, multi-factor authentication, which we would explain, and poor backup configuration. Then you have the system root flaws, which are things that we cannot control, which is the OS and application defects, firmware and third-party library issues, privilege escalation, unknown vulnerabilities, and zero-day attacks. And we will explain all of these as we go along. But I've segmented them into three parts. So let's go to something called identification. If you walk into this room and you identify yourself as John Doe, how do I know you're John Doe? Anybody? ID card. So you must present ID or proof. This is in the physical world, right? But even if you present an ID card, how do I know this ID card is real? I must have some idea of what a real ID card looks like to trust that identification card. So that's the second step. I said my name is John Doe. My name must match what is on the ID card. You with me so far? Anybody doesn't agree with me so far? If you don't, please put up your hand and we'll trash it out. And the photo on the ID card must match the person in front of you. Does that make sense? So these are the steps you go to for physical identification. If somebody walks into a door and say, I am XYZ, you ask them for identification. Even unknowingly, this is exactly what you do. And any break in that chain breaks the identification process. Now we have one problem. Computers can't do this. A computer cannot tell who you are in this manner. So how does a computer do this? When a computer has a service to give to you or data to give to you, you have to first of all identify you. And I'm getting to a point, so just bear with me for a second. The digital way of identification requires, or there are three ways of doing it. Something you know, something you have, and something you are. This is the very academic way of putting it, so let's break it down into the everyday way. Something you know is a password. If you know something that only you should know, by demonstrating that you know this thing, it identifies you as the person who you say you are. That clear? Same thing as a PIN. When you pick up your phone, the phone doesn't know who picks it up. When you put in the PIN or the password, the phone automatically thinks, well, I have a secret that only the user would know. So if only the user knows this secret, I must be talking to the user. Yes or no? That is how our identification works on digital devices. The second one is something you have. Now, I don't know if you ever see somebody go into a building and they swipe a key card. That is something you have. It may be a phone as well, where you must have possession of this. By virtue of having possession of this item, it identifies you as who you are. So if you're working with a particular department and they give you a key card, possession of this key card is what identifies you to the system. Getting to a point. The third way of authentication, which is the most sophisticated way, is biometrics. So this is your fingerprint, facial recognition, retinal scan. There's a host of them, right? This is the most solid one because two people generally can't share biometrics. Now, Mr. Duncan talked about multi-factor authentication, so I'm going to squeeze this in here now. All these are called factors. When you identify yourself using one of these, it's a single-factor authentication. If you use two of them, it's called a multi-factor, two-factor authentication. Using two or more is multi-factor authentication. And the way how it works in increasing security, it decreases the chance of somebody having both items. So I want to squeeze in something else again. Nothing we say here is going to make you safe. It's only going to make you safer. So all you're doing is that you're trying to decrease the window of opportunity for something bad happening where security is concerned. So having two factors of authentication doesn't mean it's bulletproof. It just makes it harder. And that is all we're trying to do. In security, you don't have to be the fastest gazelle. You just have to run faster than the slowest one. That is a term that we usually say in security. Once you're running faster than the slowest one, you're better off because the slowest one is going to get caught. So a password is a secret that identifies you to a system. We established that already, and only you should know it. This is extremely important. I cannot stress this enough. If it is weak or reused or stolen, the account is exposed. And as I said, we're going to stress on passwords because as far as we see it at ITSD, this is the first step we need to fix in the government service. Common ways passwords are attacked. Now, passwords by its very nature, it have all of these factors of authentication, they have their flaws. Nothing is flawless. So we're going to look at the flaws that passwords have and how we can do things to decrease those flaws or decrease the effectiveness of those flaws. Brute force, which is trying many combinations, and we'll go back in detail to explain them, so I'm just going to list them. Dictionary attacks, password spraying, credentials stuffing, phishing, keylogging, shoulder surfing, and social engineering. Now, let's go through them. What is a brute force attack? Anybody have an idea what a brute force attack is? Okay. You try and try and try until you get the password. It's called a brute force because there's no intelligence to it. You just keep trying forever. Right? Now, a dictionary attack is slightly different. A dictionary attack means that you have a file with a list of options, and you keep trying that list. It's not as dumb as a brute force attack, but it's not that smart either. You just keep going through the list until you find the right password. Now, anybody ever see a dictionary file? Have anybody ever seen a dictionary, and the IT professionals, a dictionary file? They contain millions and millions of passwords, and 9 out of 10 times your password is in that file. Because how they compile that list is when systems get breached, they take those passwords from those breached systems and add them together to that list. So this list is extremely extensive, and there's a reason why I'm stressing on it now. Because it's going to come back to you not wanting to do the things that we want you to do. So I'm trying to show you how not doing them exposes you. Phishing is getting somebody to do something that they wouldn't do normally through an email or a text. Shoulder surfing, something that people don't think about. Somebody just sitting over your shoulder and looking at you type your password, especially if you have a short password. Once I see you type it 2-3 times, the first time I just get the 2 letters. The second time I get the other 3. By the time I keep looking at your shoulder 4-5 times, I know your entire password. Right? Social engineering. Oh, I am not at work today. Could you log in for me? Do this, do that. Asking a question, playing on somebody's emotions to do something that they may not normally do. Phishing is a type of social engineering as well. Password breaches. If you have a password that you reuse over and over, which a lot of us are guilty of, it means that when one system is breached, all are breached. And hackers know this. They know generally if somebody uses one password for Facebook, the password for Instagram is slightly the same thing or just a little bit different. Weak or default passwords are easy to guess. So what are default passwords? I show most of you your default login for your modem at home is the same thing that is written underneath the modem. I've seen a lot of head shaking. Don't feel bad. Well, feel bad, but understand when you go home you need to change it. So I'm just going to let you watch a short video on dictionary attacks. My presentation have a few videos in it because I really don't like to hear my own voice. So I'm going to let you hear somebody else for a second and see.
What's a dictionary attack? Hi everyone, Leo Notenboom here for AskLeo.com. If you're interested in getting tips, tricks, definitions like this and more in your inbox every week, head over to AskLeo.com/newsletter and sign up for my weekly Confident Computing newsletter. Dictionary attack is a phrase we often hear in security circles as one way that hackers attempt to basically gain access to resources they shouldn't. Usually it's a password attack. It's an attack on the different kinds of passwords that we're all using. It's important to understand what a dictionary attack is or is not. Typically, it doesn't actually use a literal dictionary. It's not using your dictionary from your desk or the dictionary that you think of as having a list of all the words in the English language. It could. Don't get me wrong. That is a dictionary. That is one kind of attack, I suppose. But in reality, a dictionary is a more generic term for a list of words. And by words, I mean often things that aren't words. Examples of dictionaries would include a list of common passwords, a list of previously discovered passwords, a list of first names, a list of honestly just about anything. Again, not necessarily words, but things that are useful in the context of hacking passwords. So, the attack. We understand what a dictionary is. What's the attack? The attack is really simple. Try everything in the dictionary. Start at the beginning, see if that will work as a password, see if the next one works as a password, see if the next one works. Again, in most cases, this is all being done offline with stolen copies of databases. So the hackers have the time and can apply the resources to try these massive lists of passwords against what they have to see if any of them work.
especially with the list of previously discovered passwords. A frighteningly high number of those passwords will in fact gain them access to some of the accounts in the database that they have stolen. However, that's an offline attack, right? They've stolen the database and they have stored it on their computer, and now they're basically just whacking away at it with whatever technology they happen to have available. There's also what I call a persistent attack. Now, clearly, one of the pushbacks I get whenever I talk about brute force attacks or dictionary attacks is, well, if I try to sign in and I get my password wrong 3 times, it stops. It either locks me out or it slows me down or something like that. This is true. Hackers are very, very patient, or at least they can be. And in reality, it's not the hacker being patient at all. It's the machine or the botnet that they've set up to do this work for them. Here's what I mean. They may take one of these lists, one of these dictionaries of things they want to try as passwords, and they will try one on your account, and it will fail. They will come back a minute later and try the next one. A minute later and try the next one. A minute later and try the next one. On and on and on in this very slow but very persistent dictionary attack. And yes, it can take years for them to run across whatever happens to be the correct current password for your account. They don't care. They're not spending time on this. They have written the program is running, and it is just doing this mindlessly until it comes up with a successful result. Now, in reality, they're probably doing it a little bit faster than that, right? Because not only are they not attacking only your account, they're attacking a bunch of different accounts, and there probably is no reason for them to delay between them. And they're usually doing this using a botnet, which means that the service that's being attacked can't even say, oh, this machine is being really problematic, because it's not that machine. It's hundreds of thousands of other machines that are compromised across the internet, and the service that's being attacked can't even blame it all on one machine to make it stop. One of the interesting things about being a server owner, and I think a lot of people that have servers may have run into this as well, is it's very interesting to take a look at the logs. When you sign into a service, there's usually a log of what you've done, who signed in, or the failed sign-ins. And I've seen this literally on my own server. There'll be a failure. A few seconds later, there'll be a failure. A few seconds later, there'll be a failure. My server, all servers, are under constant attack. Now, there's more to it than just passwords. I mentioned common first names as one of the dictionary lists, and that's because they don't even necessarily need to know the account username, because first name usernames are so incredibly popular. I'll admit, I use Leo as a username when I can. It's usually taken by the time I get to the big services, but on my own, absolutely. Same thing with pretty much any common first name. So, as part of the dictionary attack, they won't even try to figure out what accounts they're hacking. They'll just run through both the list of all the names that they have and the list of all the passwords that they have or are choosing to try. And yeah, they don't have to be successful very often, but they're successful often enough. And finally, it doesn't even have to deal with passwords. It can also be about spam. The username at Gmail, first name at gmail.com, for example, I'm sure there's an account for every common first name, including Leo. I don't own it, but somebody does. I wasn't able to get it when I tried. Point being that, great, spammers don't really need to know the account names either. All they need to do is send spam to all the common first names against all the popular mail services, and some of them are going to land.
Okay, I think Leo got my point across. Don't need to make him continue. the most important thing we need to get from this, because he goes on to other things that we're not interested in currently, is that there exist these lists out there, and these lists are extremely comprehensive. Very few times a regular word that you create as a password is not going to be on that list. Now, we are lucky in the Caribbean that we have dialect. And because dialect is not standard, you may get away using dialect phrases as a password if you add some tightening up to it, which we'll get to a little later. All right? So reducing password vulnerability risk. This is the meat of the matter now. Strong passwords. That reduces brute force by being harder to guess. Reducing dictionary attacks by avoiding common words and patterns, and help to reduce password spraying when they are unique. Long passwords or passphrases increases the number of possible combinations, makes guessing and brute force attacks much harder. They are easier to remember when it's built from a phrase. Multi-factor authentication reduces the risk of stolen passwords and helps stopping credential stuffing. So let's go through all of these, or generally. So what is a strong password? A strong password is a password that is long. Typically, the number keeps increasing based on the power of computers. That's the other thing we need to talk about, that security, what is considered secure today would change tomorrow. So at one point you might hear it's 7 characters long, then it jumped to 8, then it jumps to 10, because as computing power increases, then you need to increase the complexity of the password. So I think at this point, 12 is considered normal, 10 or 12. And you have to increase the range of characters that you use to create your password. So not just A, B, C, D with the alphabet, but numbers, capital, common letters, special characters. People know what special characters are? Right. Because special characters remove standard words from being guessed, because there's no real word with special characters in it, right? Passphrases. So passphrases are good, especially for persons who it's hard for them to remember passwords, because you're not trying to remember a word, you're sticking a few words together to create a phrase. This is still not the best idea, but remember we're judging this on a scale. There's very good and there's very bad, and your decision may be in between. So limit damage from phishing only when passwords are stolen. So multi-factor authentication removes the password from being the only thing you need to get in. So even if you, for some reason, you get the password, you still need something else to get in. Password managers generate unique passwords for every account. They reduce password reuse, create strong random passwords, lockout rate limiting. Anybody know what lockout rate limiting is? That's good. That's exactly what it is. But I'm going to push you a little further. Based on what we saw just now, how will that help? Yeah, you.
Sorry, can you repeat?
So you're correct. But the next question I want to ask you is, based on what was demonstrated before, how will that help? How would locking you out help?
So you go to the next step where your voice is another...
Well, that's biometrics, but
right.
what I'm trying to get at is that if you're trying a list of passwords successively, you try 1, you try 2, you try 3, and then the account gets locked for 10 minutes. You have to wait 10 minutes to try the other 4, 5, and 6, and you get locked so hard, because usually when you get locked out, the successive locks are longer as you go along. So you get locked out for 3 minutes, then probably 15 minutes, then half an hour, then total lockout. It makes the ability to iterate through these lists harder, because you would have to get it right very early. And statistically, remember we're playing a numbers game. Statistically, it's very improbable that that is going to happen. Now, there's also a negative with password lockout, which I will, please remind me to tell you about it. I don't want to go sideways too fast. So lockout would slow or block brute force attacks. They help reduce password spraying. They make repeated guesses less effective. Default password changes, the same password that is sitting under your router. So remove known vendor default. Something is shipped to you, it has to have a default username and password. You are told in the instructions that none of us ever read, please change the password when you get this device. Prevent easy compromise of new systems, and this should happen at early in deployment. Phishing awareness training. So, phishing is one of those very complex threats because there are very few ways to systematically try to stop phishing because it's playing on the user themselves. So you try to bring awareness to users in terms of how the threats look so that they could recognize them better. And I'll go into some things that the government service needs to do or to help ITSD do to reduce phishing. It helps limit social engineering success. Log monitoring and alerts, we talk about logs, detect suspicious login attempts early, support quicker response to attacks, device and malware protection, reduce keylogger and malware risk, biometric or token-based methods reduce dependence on passwords alone. So the persons who are the IT professionals looking at logs are going to help you a lot because every time somebody tries to log in and it doesn't have a successful attempt, the system is going to log it as a failed attempt. And in the system log, especially for example Apache, you're going to see a list of failed attempts in your error log. And this is where you start looking to see what IP address they're coming from. Then you start looking at your firewall. You start looking at your logs and putting your logs together to create a picture of what is happening. So we have another video here. And this is going to answer your question. Somebody asked about the password keeper. Yeah, this should answer your question.
Whether we like it or not, passwords are part of our daily life. And guess what? You suck at it. And that's where password managers come in. For most of us, there are 3 problems that keep us from having a more secure password profile. First, we tend to create crackable passwords. Then we tend to reuse those passwords over and over again. And finally, we tend to prefer convenience over security. So what is a password manager? A password manager solves each of those 3 problems by helping you create long, complex passwords, helping you store those passwords in a secure vault behind a single master password that only you know, and then providing convenient access to those passwords on any device whenever you need it. If the trouble of setting up a password manager just seems like too much work for you, I promise it's not. And throughout the rest of this video, I'm not only going to walk you through how a password manager works, but I'm also going to show you how easy it is to set it up. So how does a password manager work? Well, right now you're probably reusing the same passwords over and over again, or you're writing them down on a sheet of paper that you keep near your desk, or keeping them on a file on your computer. All of these leave you extremely vulnerable to hacking and are not very secure ways to do passwords. Now, as I said earlier, a password manager acts as both a password generator and a vault. So let's say that this box is a password manager app. It's going to help you create a very long, strong password that includes uppercase, lowercase, numbers, symbols, anything to make it complex and unique for every single login that you have. You then store that login inside the password manager app behind a master password that you set and hopefully only you know. So that way when you want to access all of your different logins, you only have one password that you have to remember, and all of these other passwords are not only unique, but they're also incredibly strong. There are a number of great password manager apps on the market today. For the most part, they all operate exactly the same with just a few minor differences in features. I use 1Password, so that's the program I'm going to use to show you how to set up a master password in just a moment. But I want you to know that there are many other options out there, including some free open source options. So do your research before you make a choice. Now, let's dive in. Now, the first thing you're going to need to do after you install any password manager app is you need to set your your master password. And I can't stress this enough. You need to set a very strong master password that you can remember. Those are two very important things. And if you need help creating or having a strategy to create that password, you can watch this video here where I offer some ideas. Now, when you log in, you're going to notice here that I have over 300 logins. That is probably a lot, but you might be surprised at how many logins you have after you start adding all of your different online logins to a password manager app. Now, there are two main places that you could create new passwords as you're setting up a password manager app. The first is within the actual program where you can go in and create a new login. So let's say I wanted to create a login for a Facebook test account. I could have a test email and then a password, which would hopefully be a whole lot better than that one. And then I would put it in at facebook.com, and then I can save that. I have the option to add notes or tags, anything I want to, but I can save that new password, and it is now part of my vault within 1Password for me. Another easy option is just to log in to your regular account. So if I were to log in, I can save this into my password manager app directly from the browser. And this allows me to either update a saved login or save a new login, let's say Facebook tester. And now I've created a new login that I can access anytime that I want. Facebook test, this is the one that I created in the app, and this is the one that I created here in the browser. And then of course I've got my actual login, which I'm blurring out right here. But that just shows you how easy it is to set up the password manager. What's going to happen is you're going to go in and just log into your daily accounts like you normally would. You're going to store those in the password manager app, and then as time goes on, hopefully you're going to be changing your passwords and making them stronger. And when you do change those passwords, you can have your password manager app, which you can see here, I've got 1Password suggesting this really strong password right here, and then I can use that and have it update my Facebook tester profile. Do you need a password manager app? Absolutely, yes, you do, because there's no way that you as a human can replicate the password complexity or the storage capacity of a password manager app to secure all your online logins. I hope this video has been helpful. If so, give it a thumbs up. Questions go in the comments below, and I always hope that you'll click that subscribe button to get more, whether we like it or not. Right.
So, you got the gist of what a password manager is and how it works. Any questions? None? So, browsers have a password manager. Everybody in here have their password stored in Google. The problem with that is that you can access the passwords if you know the machine's credentials. The browser assumes that the user of the machine is the owner of the machine, and access to the machine means that you have access to the password in the browser. Let me say that again. The browser, Chrome, makes the assumption that by the mere fact that you have logged into the machine and the account for the Chrome browser is logged into, that you have access, or you should have access to those passwords. So if you take your machine, you log in and you give your machine to somebody else to use, they could log into all your accounts if they are stored there, because it's just going to auto-populate it once you get to the login page. If you're going to share a machine, create separate accounts on the machine, OS level accounts. So phishing attacks. Phishing is an attempt to trick a person into giving away sensitive information or taking unsafe action by pretending that the message is legitimate. It usually needs the victim to take an action first. The action might be a click, attachment open, download, scan, or login entry. The action allows the attack to move from a message to a compromise. So when you open your email, generally, 90% of the time, because there are few phishing emails that are extremely complex that do not require any action, right? But most of them require you to actually do something, which is actually clicking. Machines need instructions. And outside of a few applications that can self-execute, most threats need an action to actually execute, and that action usually comes in the form of clicking. When you click on a link, you're actually giving a computer an instruction. You're telling it to execute the instruction behind the link. That is what you're doing, as simple as you see it. And then the computer assumes if you have logged in and you are using the account, then any action that happens while you are logged in is an administrator's action, because you are logged in. You are telling me to do something, I am going to do it, right? So when you click on a link, the link could either take you to a site, or it could download a malicious application it can be a keylogger. So what keyloggers do, they sit in the background and they record your keystrokes. Every keystroke you make, it records it, stores it in a file. Some of them send the information back to a command and control server. Or it may take you to a site that looks similar to a site that you usually go to, username and password, login, and you think you're at the site you're supposed to go, and you put in your username and password, and all it does is ships that username and password off to the attacker. There are ways to figure this out, which we will get to, and we'll tie it into how our behavior in government needs to change. In the government service needs to change. So this is an example of a phishing mail. Now if you notice, and I'm coming to your question, and I'll tell you why what you're doing currently, unbeknown, no shade thrown, is dangerous. I just made this up, svgtreasury@gov.gmail.com. So I send this to somebody and I tell them to update their credentials or their account. And they're going to click on it. Now there's several things wrong with this why you should never click on it. But before we could use this as a universal filter, we have to first change our behavior. So if we first had the situation where no government department had a Gmail account, then you could tell somebody that. But if you have government departments who have Gmail accounts, then you can't tell somebody this, because there's the possibility that you can have, that you can have a Gmail account. So for example, what's the account that you were speaking about? What's your email account? svgparentinunit@gmail.com. So imagine I decide tomorrow I'm going to create an address. Head svgparentinunit@gmail.com. And I start to email people. Do you think they would respond? And they would give me information, right? Because you have created a tradition of sending emails through Gmail. I'm not blaming you, I'm just giving you an example. So once you keep doing that, then anybody can create an email, because the Gmail domain is an open domain that anybody can use. Now the gov.vc Gmail belongs to the government. You cannot create an email or a URL on that domain without us knowing. It belongs to us. So if we first clean up our act where we don't have Gmail accounts or Hotmail, whichever, then we can tell people how to spot phishing. You can't tell somebody what not to do when there are legitimate things that look like that. So that is why it is important for us to use the gov domain and use the gov email, because these are what people can use to not get attacked or to not fall victim to these attacks. So how do we reduce phishing attacks? We encourage users to trust only approved official government domains, help citizens become familiar with the legitimate government links and what the addresses would look like. This makes spoofed or lookalike messages easier to spot. So currently they're not easy to spot because you have legitimate addresses sending these mails. So you can't tell people not to click on them that easily because they might be missing out on a real mail. If you had a gov.vc email, then you know from the time it comes from a gov, even if there's a threat within the gov.vc, it's a small group. It's easier to find. Standardize official communications. Oh, this is another one. Use consistent branding language, signatures, and templates. There are some departments who like their website to look different every Monday morning. That's a problem, because it means the end user can't spot when something is wrong. There's no consistency. All government websites should have a consistent look, so that when you land on one, if it doesn't look right, something not right here. Right? And it's not just website, letterheads. If you don't have a consistent look on your letterhead, when somebody receives one, how do they know something is wrong? When official messages follow a known format, fraudulent messages stand out. Before you click, know the domain. So before you click, read messages carefully. Before you click on a link, check the sender domain. Call the department directly if a message looks suspicious. Nothing is wrong with calling somebody, as Kaswalan said before, and saying, hey, you sent me a message with this link. What is this about? Especially when you're not expecting it. So I need to explain what is a domain. I kind of did before, but I have it in the slide. The main part of a website or email address that shows who owns or operates it. So in this example, what would be the domain be? Can't hear you. Right. So knowing the real domain helps users catch fake or lookalike sites. Now that doesn't mean they can't have a domain that looks close to it. Right? So read message carefully. Right, went through that. What happens after the phishing attack? After the user takes the action, the attacker may capture credentials, redirect the user to a fake site, or deliver malware. So the first thing is the suspicious email comes in. The user clicks on and opens it. Fake page or malware appears, and then the credentials may get stolen. So I want to touch on something, HTTPS and HTTP. Now, HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. I'm going to get a little technical, but if you follow closely, you'll understand. All communication on the internet is plain text. That's how the internet was designed. Everything that goes back and forth on the internet originally is plain text. If you were to be able to filter the data at a switch and look at it in plain text, you can see the information. But later on, they decided to put a layer of security over it, which is called encryption. So encryption is where you take text, you scramble it, and you create ciphertext. And you cannot read that text without the encrypting key. I wouldn't go into details of encryption, but that's basically how it works. It's how the world works, right? So you have to know when the site you're visiting says HTTP or HTTPS. And how you know this, usually there's a little badge or a lock at the top that would tell you this, whether it's encrypted or not. Now, encryption, and this is more for the IT persons. Now, encryption does not mean that there's a certificate. Let me see all who understand what a certificate is. See, one, had to be more than one. Okay. So just for a general overview, I like to use analogies. Analogies help to convey information in a way that you would understand. If you walk to a place with a friend and somebody walks up to you and introduces themselves, do you believe them? No, right? If the friend who you trust tell you, yes, that is so-and-so, what happens? You then believe that they are who they are because you trust the friend. In a very basic way, that's what a certificate is. You are trusting a third party to tell you that where you're going is legitimate, right? So that is a certificate in a nutshell, a very small one. We're going to move to phishing.
You've been selected. Congratulations, you're a winner. You've got free money waiting for you. Your account has been deactivated. Click here to confirm your account. you've got a package waiting for you. All of these things are different forms of phishing attacks. Some of them are about greed, and some of them are tapping into fear. But they're all trying to social engineer you. They're trying to get you to take an action through some sort of immediate motivation. So we're going to talk about phishing and what's behind it and how you can defend against it. So one of the first things we'll talk about is the social engineering aspect of it. Social engineering, what does that mean? Well, it means that we're trying to get you to do something. It's a con game. I tell you to do something, I give you a time motivation or something like that. The clock is ticking in order for you to take an action quickly. And what am I trying to get you to do as a result of this social engineering? Well, I'm going to try to get you to click on a link that takes you to some fake website. If I can get you there, then I can get you to type in your credentials, and then I can steal your account. Or I can steal corporate secrets. Or I could get enough information about you in order to open up a credit card in your name. Another type of attack that I might be trying to get you to do would be to infect your system. If you click on this link or you click on this file and open it, it installs malware on your system. Then I'm able to see your credentials, or I can take over your system. But these are sort of the object of what the phishing attack is trying to get. Now, how about the different types of phishing attacks? Well, in fact, we've got phishing attacks that are general in nature. So there's sort of the general phishing attack, which is pretty indiscriminate. I'm just going to send out, if I'm a phisher, I'm going to send this out to anybody and see who responds. Then there's a more specific type of phishing attack that we call spear phishing. And in a spear phishing attack, a specially crafted message that would make sense to you. In fact, the more specific it is to you and your environment, the more likely you are to click on it. It doesn't have the same widespread appeal, but sometimes it's more effective. So for instance, if I know that you bank at a particular place, I'll send you the phishing email as if it came from that particular bank. Now, if you send a spear phishing attack and it doesn't apply to certain of your audience, then they don't fall for it. If I know I don't have a bank account at that place, I'm not going to click, presumably. But this can be very effective. Another form of this would be that it comes from your employer and they know who you work for. They could even spoof who it's coming from and say that it's coming from your boss, and therefore you're likely to click on it. So this is an example of spear phishing. Another variation on this is called whaling. This is a special case of spear phishing where I'm going after the big fish. I'm going for the C-suite. I'm sending this to the CEO, the CFO, the COO, somebody really important with lots of information and lots of access. So I'm going to put in lots of detail. It's going to be very specially crafted in order to make sure that it's effective. There are other options here as well that phishers use. SEO poisoning is another example where I put up a fake website and then I do enough to trick the search engine into believing that my site is real and that this should be listed higher on the search results. And then people going and doing a search, so this is not driven by an email, they go and do a search on a regular search engine and they see this in the top 3 and they click on it when they're trying to get to their bank and they end up getting to my fake site. And then another form of this is called smishing. Smishing is basically the SM part being SMS. So it's a phishing attack, whereas most of these first two, actually the first 3, are coming in email. This is coming through a search engine, and this is coming through an SMS message. But it's all intended to do the same sorts of things that we've seen over here. Now, what should you do to protect against this? Well, there's a number of things you could do. The most important thing you could do in all of this is stop and think. Think about if it's too good to be true, if it sounds that way, it probably is. You probably didn't win free money. Your account may have been deactivated, but there's probably a better way to find out than just clicking on that link. What are some other things? Don't click. The instinct, because we see something immediate, is to respond and click on that. If the old rule, and you may have heard this, is don't click on a link if you don't know where it came from. I'm going to suggest to you, you never know where it came from. Or at least in most cases you don't. Because sending email addresses can be spoofed. I could send an email that looks like it came from your bank, and you might not be able to tell the difference. I could send it as if it came from your boss, and you might not be able to tell the difference. So don't rely on who you think it came from. Rely on, is this something that you feel you should open or not? Are you expecting this file? Are you expecting this link? That's a much better rule, I think, to follow. Other things you can do, make sure your systems are patched. That is, keep the software levels up to date. In a lot of cases, phishers will rely on vulnerabilities in the operating system or applications in order to infect your system. You can also do the traditional things like antivirus or the newer stuff like endpoint detection and response in order to protect your endpoint, your client system from these. Some other things you can do is use an email security program, something that basically scrubs all the emails that come into you and looks for links to known phishing sites and other types of dangerous. You've been selected. Congratulations.
And that last point, the email server does have that filtering for Gov email addresses. It's not perfect. None of them can be perfect, but that does exist on Gov email addresses. Some will slip through, but that exists. I want to touch on one thing that he spoke about and why it's on the rise. People no longer use URLs. They do not type in a URL. I guess I'm showing my age by saying this. Everybody just type what they want into Google and trust that whatever comes to the top is what they're looking for. And then they click on it. That is not going to a site. That is searching for something and getting the result and hoping that where you're going is where you want to go. Get accustomed, especially when you're using government data, to use URLs. Use the URL link, type for what you're looking for, go directly to the site. So the next thing we're going to touch on is wrong password. Just going to run through this one very quickly. So you use proper naming conventions such as the first name and the last name. Standardized addresses format across organizations. Use structured groups for IT admin, group, doctors, nurses admin. Kaswalan talked about that earlier, where if you have a distribution group and you want to send it to the nurses, you don't have to add persons one by one and accidentally add somebody who is not a nurse. If you have a nurses group, you click nurses, it would automatically send it to all the persons who are nurses. Name groups clearly so that the audience is obvious before sending. So this is an example where people use autocomplete, double check recipient names and addresses and labels. Do not rely on autocomplete. Review group memberships regularly. Only use distribution lists when it's necessary. So if you don't need to send it to all staff, do not send it to all staff. Take extra care with sensitive information. This is one of the most dangerous ones in our behavior, is ignoring security warnings. I am sure you've all seen this one before. Windows needs to update, and you tell it update later. And they keep saying update later, update later, update later, until one day the machine just say, I am updating now. Right? Now let me tell you, and I am guilty of it too. I am not in any way standing here preaching to you as if it doesn't happen to all of us. We all have to change our posture and our behavior. But at least I'm going to tell you why it is dangerous, right? So do not ignore updates or unexpected system alerts. The other thing is when, as an IT professional, I know you've heard this before, something popped up on the machine. Okay, what is it? I don't know, I close it. I can't help you at that point in time, right? So call or report to IT when you do not understand the message or warning. Learn the normal behavior of your device and environment. Ignorance is not an excuse for safe security practice. And I was going to take this out because I didn't want it to sound offensive, but I decided to leave it in for a particular reason. There are a group of persons who believe that I don't know, I don't want to know, it takes too much time for me to learn, and I can't be bothered. And no matter how you try to get them to learn security protocols, they just can't be bothered. And the persons who are most guilty of this are usually persons in top positions. Right? They don't want to follow protocol, they don't want to, and those are the ones who are susceptible to whaling. And the reason why it is so dangerous is if you can get hold of their account. If I get hold of my director's account, the first thing I'm doing is I'm going to send an email to the admin and tell them to create an account for me, because he may change his password. So the first thing I'm going to do is to create an account for myself. And that now becomes a persistent threat. Nobody else could make that call to tell somebody create an account. So if you are at the top of your organization, you have to be very careful, because a breach on your account could have catastrophic repercussions. Avoid using portable devices, use managed file system. This is a touchy one. So flash drives. I've been to many offices.
Before you go on the update, I want to add that you should also monitor the update and try not to make updates automatic.
Correct.
Right? Try not to make updates automatic, because an automatic update can compromise your system. Understand?
Yeah. Right. So you see, now that is actually a very controversial statement, because, and you would find this in security on certain topics, that there's one school of thought to do this, and there's another school of thought to do the other. Now, what Duncan is saying is that when you, especially for critical systems, Duncan is talking from a system administrator perspective. A system administrator should never let the system automatically update. You need to read what the update does, what it's supposed to do, what your threat surface is. Do I need to do this update? Is it a Friday when transactions are happening? Do I need to do this now? But I am giving this from an end user perspective, where when you read the risk and the reward, I think the school of thought is let the end user update, especially if it comes from the source. Like if Microsoft tell you you should update Microsoft, 9 times out of 10 you really should do it, right? But this is not the same instructions that a system admin would just go and hit update. There should be a whole protocol for updating your system as a system administrator. So flash drive moving around the office is easy to lose, misuse, infect, and copy from. The safe alternative is a managed file system. And I am guilty of that today. I push a flash drive in my machine. So instead, use managed shared drives, approve cloud or government portals, and ITSD is now pushing a system that we call Nextcloud, where departments can have their own document management system in the cloud, where the files that are uploaded could be scanned, could be shared, proper use of storage, you don't have files duplicating, right? Files are encrypted, systems that keep logs, permission, backups, and version history, so you know who uploaded what, if somebody made a change to it. If you take some data off a computer with a flash drive, remember that data, no matter how sensitive it is still on that flash drive, eh? Your child takes that flash drive to school to copy some data, gives it to the teacher plugs it into the machine, that data is still there. The download, you have no control of the data after it goes on a flash drive. But if you must use a flash drive, you could use ones that are encrypted, right? And you should turn off the auto-run feature on your computer when you plug. This is more for the security professionals. When you plug a flash drive in, there's a piece of code that runs that discovers the flash drive. That is how the window pops up on your machine. It is in running this code that you can execute bad code. This one is about flash drives.
Welcome to the Cybersecurity Tutorial Series, designed to help you better protect your information and devices from cyber attacks. Tutorial 7, using caution with USB drives. What are the risks associated with using USBs? USB drives, sometimes known as thumb drives, are small, readily available, inexpensive and portable, so they are popular for storing and transporting files from one computer to another. However, these same characteristics make them appealing to attackers. Examples of risks. Attackers can use USB drives to infect other computers with malware that can detect when the USB drive is plugged into a computer. The malware then downloads malicious code onto the drive. When the USB drive is plugged into another computer, the malware also infects that computer. Some attackers have also targeted electronic devices directly, infecting items such as electronic picture frames and USB drives during production. When users buy the infected products and plug them into their computers, malware is installed on their computers. Attackers may also use their USB drives to steal information directly from a computer. If an attacker can physically access a computer, he or she can download sensitive information directly onto a USB drive. The most obvious security risk for USB drives, though, is that they are easily lost or stolen. If the data was not backed up, the loss of a USB drive can mean hours of lost work and the potential that the information cannot be replicated. And if the information on the drive is not encrypted, anyone who has a USB drive can access all of the data on it. How can you protect yourself? Let's check out some steps you can take to protect the data on your USB drive and on any computer that you might plug the drive into. Do not plug an unknown USB drive into your computer. If you find a USB drive, give it to the appropriate authorities. For example, a location's security personnel or your organization's IT department. Do not plug it into your computer to view the contents or try to identify the owner. Take advantage of security features. Use passwords and encryption on your USB drive to protect your data and make sure that you have the information backed up in case your drive is lost. Keep personal and business USB drives separate. Do not use personal USB drives on computers owned by your organization, and do not plug USB drives containing corporate information into your personal computer. Disable auto run. The auto run feature causes removable media such as CDs, DVDs and USB drives to open automatically when they are inserted into a drive. By disabling auto run, you can prevent malicious code on an infected USB drive from opening automatically. Use and maintain security software and keep all software up to date. Use a firewall, antivirus software and anti-spy software to make your computer less vulnerable to attacks and keep the virus definitions current. Also, keep the software in your computer up to date by applying any necessary patches. Check out more videos from this cybersecurity tutorial series to learn how you can better protect your information and device.
For more on this, you could search YouTube for Stuxnet or Eternal Blue, and you would see how dangerous this is. I wouldn't go into it, but just search for Stuxnet or Eternal Blue, and you'll get a... Many times you install a machine and you open a port to run a particular service. Let's say you're running MySQL 3306 for the IT persons in here, and then you're now using that database server to do something else, and you never close that port. So that machine is now doing so. It's now moved from being a database server to a file server, but port 3306 is still open. It was never closed. All right? This is how over time, as the machine is repurposed, ports stay open. And there's a nice little application called Nmap that you can run on a network, and I could see all your machines, all the ports that are open, and then I can try a nice little application. Go for that. Now, the dangerous one, the root flaws. Now, there are some flaws in machines that you call zero-day flaws. There's literally nothing you can do about them, right? You buy a machine, it comes with the operating system. You did not write the code to the operating system. You're just trusting the OS. But the person who wrote the code for the operating system, they're not perfect either. And there are flaws that may be embedded in them that they just don't know about. But usually state actors, these are malicious persons working for another government, have the resources to find these exploits. And what they do, they sit on this information. They do not tell anybody about it. And when they need to use this information, they can use it to exploit. Usually it's an operating system exploit. It could be application as well. So these are called zero-day exploits because you have spent 0 days working on them. Nobody knows about them, right? And the only thing you can do is keep updating your operating system because
software and operating system updates. Software and operating system updates that address security vulnerabilities within a program or product. Software vendors may choose to release updates to fix performance or security bugs, as well as to provide enhanced security functionality. How do you find out what software updates you need to install? When software updates become available, vendors usually put them on their websites for users to download. Install updates as soon as possible to protect your computer, phone, or other digital device against attackers who would take advantage of system vulnerabilities. Attackers may target vulnerabilities for months or even years after updates are available. Some software will automatically check for updates, and many vendors offer users the option to receive updates automatically. If automatic options are available, it is recommended that you take advantage of them. If they are not available, periodically check your vendor's websites for updates. Make sure that you download software updates from trusted vendor websites. Do
Very
not
important.
trust a link in an email message, as attackers have used email messages to direct users to websites hosting malicious files disguised as legitimate updates. Users should also be suspicious of email messages that claim to have a software update file attached. These attachments may contain malware. If possible, only apply automatic updates from trusted network locations, for example at home or at work. Avoid updating software automatically or manually while connected to untrusted networks like at the airport, a hotel or coffee shop. If updates must be installed over an untrusted network, use a virtual private network or VPN connection to a trusted network and apply the updates. What is the difference between manual and automatic updates? Users can install updates manually or elect for their software programs to update automatically. Manual updates require the user or administrator to visit the vendor's website to download and install software files. Automatic updates, on the other hand, require the user or administrator's consent when installing or configuring the software. Once you consent to automatic updates, software updates are pushed or installed to your system automatically. What is end-of-life or EOL software? Sometimes vendors will discontinue support for a software program or issue software updates for it, also known as end-of-life or EOL software. Continued use of EOL software poses consequential risk to your system that can allow an attacker to exploit security vulnerabilities. Continued use of unsupported software can also decrease system performance and productivity. Retire all EOL or end-of-life software as soon as possible. Best practices for software updates. Enable automatic software updates whenever possible. This will ensure that software updates are installed as quickly as possible. Do not use unsupported or EOL software. Always visit vendor sites directly rather than clicking on advertisements or email links. And avoid software updates while using untrusted networks. New vulnerabilities are continually emerging, but the best defense against attackers exploiting patch vulnerabilities is simple. Keep your software up to date. This is the most effective measure you can take to protect your computer, phone, and other digital devices. Check out more videos from this cybersecurity tutorial series to learn how you can better
tell me something? 1, 2. So mobile devices and work from home practices. So we have the risk, loss of stolen devices, insecure Wi-Fi, and this is a list of them here with mobile devices and work from home. Now, while this is somebody asked that question. right? While it is noble to use your own devices, they have risks. You take your device home, people use your device, you share accounts, somebody have the laptop automatically logs into your work interface because the password is stored there. You can see how that can create a problem. So what I would suggest, remember security is all about weighing the pros and the cons and seeing how you can find the middle ground, is create 2 different accounts on the machine. Your work account and your other account, and only do work on your work account. It is not bulletproof, but it is better than just having it open. So there's the other things that you should do, which is avoid public Wi-Fi, which you've heard before, separate data from personal, report devices when they're lost, etc. And using your phone as well, your department needs to weigh the pros and the cons, because we are very close to the point where this conversation is going to come up with single, with multi. Mike is telling me something. Soon finish is okay. Right, we soon get to the point where we need to have conversations about bring your own device, because when you come to multi-factor authentication, I am personally pushing for persons to use some type of secondary two-factor authentication on their phone to be able to sign into all government services. So if you're not in the office and you want to sign in, it's going to send a code to a particular application on your phone to be able to sign. I am personally pushing for that. But then we would have to have the conversation about people using their personal devices for work. That conversation is above me. Right? So conclusion, pause before you click. Protect your credentials, handle information carefully, and report issues early. What I've tried to do, and I hope I succeeded, is to distill the information based on what most affects you and what we need to have done now. There are a lot of other things, we haven't even begun to scratch the surface as yet where security is concerned. But the things that I outlined here are the most important ones. If we don't get password, if we don't get authentication right, then we're not going very far. So we need to get that fixed. And I have some questions. Don't all rush at once. What should you do first if you receive a suspicious email? Anybody?
Your first step when you receive a suspicious email, you should check the domain of the email. Make sure that the domain isn't just a generic one that everyone uses, like gmail.com. If it's a government-related email, it should say gov.vc for St. Vincent. You shouldn't immediately click anything that's there, any link that's there. You could hover over the button to see what the hyperlink is taking you to. Of course, confirm with someone about the information in the email, and don't automatically just do whatever the email tells you. These are all things you should do.
Her answer was actually more comprehensive than mine. Right? But you are very correct. You're spot on. Everything that you listed, that's correct. Next one. Why is password reuse dangerous? Oh, sorry, I thought it came up. Anybody? I hear mumbling, but not an answer. Because breach of one exposes all systems, because you're using one in many places. Next question. What 3 things make passwords safer? This side here kind of, what was going on with this side? Mm-hmm. That's one. Two. Uh-huh. One more missing. Long passwords, unique and the one you left out was the multi-factor authentication. Why should officers avoid relying only on email autocomplete? So you know that thing when you start typing the email, it automatically bring up or automatically add the address. Why should you avoid that? Because it can cause sensitive information to be sent to the wrong person. What is a domain and why does it matter? Repeat it. It's correct, so I want everybody to hear it in your words.
A domain is a special, unique area that is controlled by either government, and it is used. It matters because it could control the in and out and the actions that is happening within the domain.
Correct. In your words, but correct. So this is the answer here, which is pretty much what that is. Why is sharing passwords unacceptable even with coworkers? It's the easy one. Why is sharing passwords not acceptable? It's leading me to believe that passwords are being shared. Correct. It breaks the authentication process. The computer is assuming that the original person with the password is who it's speaking to, and it's going to share information, or the system would share information with that account as if it's talking to the original person who signed in. That's obvious, because when you sign in with a username and password, the system treats you like that person. What is safer alternative to using a flash drive? A manage or shared drives. Approved cloud or government cloud. What are common signs of poor system configuration? An IT person. Open ports, default passwords, weak permissions. Why are zero-day flaws so serious? What's that? There's nothing to do. I didn't hear you.
I was saying you don't have to do anything about it.
Well, there's nothing you really can do about it. Yeah. What should you do if you see a strange writing you don't understand, security prompt that you don't understand? Call 𝑐𝘰𝑚𝑡. How does good cybersecurity support public trust? By protecting confidentiality, integrity, and availability so government services remain accurate, private, and accessible. Almost finished. What is the best and simple rule the staff should remember after this session? I hope I drove that home over and over and over and over again. Anything else? There are many answers to this. I mean, I put a few, but I want to hear from you. Tell me whether or not I failed here or not. So we talked about strong passwords, we talked about accounts, nothing else? Flash drives. Not sharing passwords. Password managers, that's a big one. Using the government's IT services. Yeah, do not bring your own device to work or seek permission before you do so. Repeat it, repeat it.
If you bring your own device to work and the network is compromised, your device can be searched by the public officer and your private data can be exposed. Right? You bring it at your own risk. Unless, like Mark said, you have an agreement before. You understand? Because in the case of liability, you will still be searched, but in the case of liability, especially for damage, you understand me? The government wouldn't stand the liability.
All right, guys, thank you very much. That is my presentation.
Don't go too far. So we'll have some questions, because I have a question, but I would see if somebody else has the question that I want to ask.
I don't have a question. I just want to make the point or enforce the point that we need to log out of services that we are using, because I find that to be something that people are doing. I don't know if it's that you just don't want to log in tomorrow. So you log in today and you leave all your windows open. You log into, it's called this, you log into SmartStream and it's open. You log into your email and it's still open. And I find too, when you do that, some people just automatically want to sign in all the time. They don't want to remember the password. So they put it in once and save it. And then every day you logging in. So anybody could break into your thing. You move from your desk to use the washroom, for instance, and somebody could just, they might be up to mischief, use your login and create mischief, and then it seems as though it's you, because you are the one that logged in. So try to avoid leaving, your machine open, your computers open, and the services.
Okay, so I was saying, to even avoid all of that, I don't think a lot of us have login on our computer in the first place. So when you go in, the computer is already open, so which gives you access to all the different applications.
Well, that's a no-no. That's an absolute no-no. One of the reasons I'm putting on my software developer hat now, one of the reasons why we choose the web platform is for precisely that. Because with a web platform, you should be developing your systems, and this goes, where should I start? Systems should be developed with an automatic defense mechanism for these things. So once there's no activity for a period of time, the system should automatically log you out.
Exactly.
Right? And built into the system automatically. Because the system should always try to make up for your tardiness as much as it can. An automatic logout is one of them.
I also want to add that in the operating systems that we use, these features are, built into the system, but they are not always enabled, right? They are not always enabled. So these are gaps. I'm happy that we're identifying these gaps, because I'm sure that as management, when we go back and so on, and we have meetings with our respective teams and so on, we would advise the technicians when they go out and so on to ensure that some of these things are enabled and so on. Because in the case of ITSC, where we are ISO certified, all these things are in place. If you leave your desk in 10 seconds, the system comes on and lock you out automatically and so on. There you can tweak configuration to enable that your password policy is enabled and so on. So it has to be of a certain length, of a certain age. So the system would inform you when you need to change your password and so on. Speaking of that, sorry, one of the reasons why some people avoid using the government email is because of things like that. Because the system will tell you every 90 days, you have to change your password. So some people would say, oh, I don't have time with that. They would go on to Google and they would use these things and so on. But I was saying to my friend here, my colleague here, one of the things about you using the same password also, it makes you predictable. It makes you what? Predictable. It's like walking the same path on your way home all the time. You understand me? The malactor knows that you're walking there at that time all the time.
Okay. I'm not a fan of this 90-day scenario, but I know why I have to change my password. I heard it from Caswallen, and I also heard it from Max. Thumb drive. It's easy to say, do not push in the thumb drives. I know that some departments or ministries or thereabouts sometimes also use their thumb drives as backups. Okay? Or you're writing a document or an email, not email, some document, memo, and they put on the thumb drive and they bring it. How then are we going to work if we don't use the thumb drive?
Right, so at ITSD, we have piloted this project of a document management system, right? And this document management system within our office space would allow persons with credentials to have their own space where you could upload stuff to. And you can share these documents within the office. You can create groups. You can have credentials. You could work on a document. You could write a document, create a document from within that system.
And collaborate. Can also
collaborate. Don't all come at once to have it installed at your department, please. Right? But it's been successful so far. I think we have two installations. We have one in our office, and we've just delivered one to another government department. I don't know if I'm at liberty of saying. But yes, that is going to be rolled out as well.
I want to say something on the thumb drive. Use the thumb drive only for temporary storage, and for permanent storage is bad. Let me tell you why. The technology on which it is built slowly deteriorates each time you plug it in. So there will come a time when you plug it in and it doesn't work. You understand? And it would fail at the most critical time when you actually need the data.
Okay, so I brought that up because I know of the document shared folders, which also brings me to the next one. Because they're not aware, or we're not aware of the document shared folder, we have a lot of departments who use Google, what do you call it?
Google
Drive, Google Share, same thing. So hence the reason why I'm bringing this up, because a lot of emphasis was made on the thumb drives, and we know we are a culture of using thumb drives. So I don't know if there are any other questions.
Maybe I can speak on that issue. At the ITSD over the years, what we have been doing, slowly but surely, is that we are building a government ecosystem that backs up data for different departments. There are several departments that have data backed up with us and so on. I'm not at liberty to say and so on because that is not good business. But in the case, for instance, on a yearly basis, sometimes what I would do is to ensure that we put budget in place to buy more and more storage and so on. So when people request storage, we can give it to them and so on. And there are cases, for instance, the department will come and say, oh, we want you to store our data. We will tell them, okay, well, you need to buy a NAS with this type of specifications and so on, with this type of redundancy. We can host it for you and so on as infrastructure as a service and so. So that too is available.
We go back to our departments and feed them with this new information for some of us, because I know some of this information shared will be new. I saw hands up at the back.
I'm a little worried about putting all my eggs in one basket, as they say. So how would I really know that the password manager that I choose to use is truly that safe? Like, if you get the master password, don't you then get everything at once? Like, I'm a bit worried about that.
That's a very good question. And yes, remember I started out by saying security is about weighing the pros and the cons. So let's weigh the both options. Option number one, you don't have a password keeper. What do? You remember all your passwords? You write them down? What is the other option? I want the young lady, you have the mic still? I want us to have a conversation here for a second. No, it's a very good question. And I want you to arrive at the solution, not by me telling you it, but you realizing what it is. And two, you sound like a security enthusiast. I'll tell you what I do, which is slightly different. So if you don't use the password keeper, what do?
I guess I have nothing else on my own mind.
So let's start there. There's nothing else to do. You're either writing down the passwords or you have an idyllic memory, remember hundreds of long passwords, because everything needs a password. My password keeper has more than
In the event that a data breach happens for them and therefore my information is susceptible to whatever any hacker wants to do, how exactly am I able to safeguard myself to that much exposure? And yeah, how do I deal with that issue if a threat occurs?
By not putting it on Facebook. I had this in a slide to demonstrate to you, but I didn't want to hold it too long, right? Phishing. The reason why phishing is successful is because you get a tidbit of information that makes you trust the information you're getting. Let me give you an example. If you go out to dinner, and at the end of the dinner you decide to take a selfie when you're paying the bill. So in the selfie there's you, there's the credit card, and there's the bill, because you're liking yourself, right? I now have your credit card number, I know where you ate, and I know how much the bill was. So then if I send you an email and I said, this is such and such from XYZ Hotel, there's been a problem with your credit card with the amount of $248 that you pay with credit card number ending 34261, you're going to believe that because you want to know how you know this. You clearly have to come from the hotel. But you put that information online. And hackers use all the information they get to create a profile to convince you that what you're getting is correct. So I have things on Facebook, don't get me wrong, but just be careful what you put on social media.
As it relates to Facebook, the data is not yours. It's not housed here in St. Vincent's. It's not within the OECS. So if it's dumb, there's no control that you have over it. And I can guarantee you that the information that's being dumped, we have applications where we could actually see the credentials. So sometimes when we see them, we would notify like Duncan and other national points of contact that, hey, this agency or this person who has a St. Vincent URL or email account has been compromised. But once you have been a victim of persons like Facebook, even WhatsApp, you don't have control. And from the law enforcement side, Facebook do have a portal where you can report. But if it's not something life-threatening, they would never respond. So just to be mindful, as Maxim said, when you put the data there, one, it's no longer yours. So you have to be mindful of that, right?
Okay, so I have a question.
Okay, before we take that question, at this moment, I want to end the live, and I want to thank our partners, API, VC3, and MBC Radio, for being with us since this morning at 9 and recording the live for us. So you all can go back. If there are things that you missed, you can always go back, and because I know there were lots of information that was covered. Some we may need to look at it a second time, and also encourage your colleagues to also take a look at the video, because I know there are a lot of things in there that we probably, I want to say knew, but I want to say did not know. So let's put the right practice forward. So at this point, I want to thank API, VC3, and MBC Radio. So we'll take questions afterwards, and then we'll proceed and get your lunch, and then we shall leave. So we can continue now.
Okay.
Yes?
So